Get peppy! Welcome to PEP 223. That's PEP or Planet Extra podcast. I am Chaz Licciardello, a host of Planet America on ABC Australia, and this is an official podcast of the ABC. So say hi to the Ombudsman for me. On PEP, we cover all the stuff that's too nerdy for TV. If you're listening, you can find us on YouTube at the PEP with Chaz and Dr. Dave channel. You can also see highlights on the PEP Clips YouTube channel, and we're on Facebook at the Chaz from Planet America channel. You also find timestamps and show notes in our blurbs under the videos, and if you leave a comment under our current episode video, we're likely to see it. You can also tweet us or blue sky us at PEPCHASDRDAVE. I should put the update from last week, shouldn't I, Lockie? Sorry about that. If you want to chat to some fellow peppers, you can join our Discord server. It's on the screen now or in the blurb of the podcast. But if you want to contact me or Lockie the Lucky privately, why not email us? The address is producer@pepthepodcast.com. The address again is producer@pepthepodcast.com. And do not forget to subscribe for all that peppy goodness. It all indeed helps. And we're recording this at 1:47 p.m. on Thursday afternoon, 31st of July in Sydney. New York time. That's going to be, what's that? That's going to be 11 p.m. on Wednesday night.
Yeah,
11:47
Sorry
p.m.
for the East Coast bias.
Sorry about that. West Coast. What's West Coast, Dave? 9:47 p.m.
Yeah.
Wednesday. There you go.
No, if it's 11:47, it'll be 8:47 p.m.
It's 3 hours early. I thought it was 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
No,
Wow.
2 hours is mountain time.
Of course, my mistake. And that voice you've just heard is the man himself who will never raise the stakes on inconsequential views. I'm talking about Dr. Pepper himself, Dr. David Smith. Hello, voice.
Time zones are not inconsequential, by the way, just to clarify. I wasn't raising the stakes on an inconsequential issue. That was very consequential, and I am David Smith. I'm an associate professor at the United States Studies Centre at the University of Sydney, but I do not speak for either of those institutions, especially when I'm talking about other institutions of higher education, which we will be doing a little bit today.
What are you grateful for on this fine afternoon, Dave?
My grateful is actually a plug this time.
Sure.
Now, don't worry, it is not a plug for a commercial product. It's a plug for some research that I've been doing.
The supervisor was looking very worried for a second there.
Yes. No, this is absolutely not commercial at all. So, long-time peppers will have noticed I talk about pandas from time to time. Well, today I am announcing a new piece of research on Pandaplomacy that I have done with my best co-author ever, Minglu Chen. This is the second article I've published with her this year. It's no exaggeration to say I am literally married to Minglu Chen.
Married to your work.
Yes. So this was as a result of a conversation that we were having over breakfast a couple of years ago. Minglu, by the way, is a senior lecturer in government and international relations at the University of Sydney. She's a China politics specialist. So we have a lot of interesting conversations about US-China relations. And one of the things that we were talking about in February 2023... Sorry, what?
Are you the Mary Madeline and James Carville of international relations?
Absolutely not.
For those who don't know, Mary Madeline's a Republican, James Carville's a Democrat, and they were very freaky on a lot of Sunday talk shows for many decades.
I resent being likened to James Carville in any way. But anyway, so we were looking at this incident that happened in Memphis Zoo in February 2023. So there were two pandas, Lola and Yaya, who had been there for 20 years. And that's how long pandas are loaned to other countries for. So they were due to go back to China. Lola died of a heart condition. Yaya had a skin condition for many years, and an American animal rights group called In Defense of Animals and another one called Panda Voices started posting photos of Yaya appearing to be quite sick, like emaciated, missing fur, looking kind of dirty, not the way that you usually see pandas. And these images caused nationalist outrage on Chinese social media, especially after Lola died. So there were rumors going around that the pandas were being fed substandard bamboo and contaminated water. And we were really interested in some of the nationalist rhetoric that was being used. Some of it was quite remarkable, saying this picture of a panda begging for food is like all of us 1.4 billion Chinese on our knees begging for food. There was a lot of talk about how this was like old-time diplomatic marriage. These are like the princesses who were just married off to other countries, not for reasons of love, but for reasons of expediency. And a lot of people were calling for the abolition of panda diplomacy. Now, in 2023, there was a lot of speculation anyway that panda diplomacy was perhaps ending because all of these pandas were going back to China from the US and Australia in 2024 and the UK. And this was at a real low point in relations between China and the US. So when this incident in Memphis Zoo occurred, this was just days after Biden had ordered the surveillance balloon to be shot down. Diplomatic talks had just been cancelled. Both sides are accusing each other of infringing their sovereignty. There'd been Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. It was bad, right? So if there's any time you might expect the Chinese government to exploit online anti-American sentiment, it would have been then. But what was really fascinating and what inspired this paper was that the Chinese government response was very, very different. Foreign Affairs spokesperson Mao Ning actually said that the Americans had taken wonderful care of the pandas, that the American people loved the pandas, and that the United States was China's valued partner in conservation efforts. The Chinese Association of Zoological Gardens conducted their own investigations and said the pandas had been well taken care of, but they were in the geriatric phase of their lives, hence the fact that one of them died and the other one had a skin condition. Even the Global Times, which is a newspaper known for its very nationalistic narratives, was running editorials exonerating the Americans. I mean, insulting them at the same time, but exonerating them.
Is this just because at the same time China's pandas were dogs that were painted black and white?
No, that is not. I knew you were going to bring that up. No, that is not the reason. Pandas are very, very well taken care of in China. And the fact that China had such a conciliatory official response actually shows how important the enterprise of panda diplomacy is for China, because it's a source of soft power that they don't really get from anywhere else. It's a level of love and cultural acceptance and warm feelings that really there's nothing else like it for China. So panda diplomacy, it turns out, was not ending in 2023. Most of those pandas were going back because their leases were ending, because China had given out so many of them in 2003. But we can see now most of them have actually been replaced. Washington has new pandas. Adelaide has new pandas. But we can really see the depths of emotion that pandas inspire in China, which in some ways is not surprising because everyone loves pandas. They have this kind of universal appeal while being distinctively Chinese. At the same time, though, what's really interesting is pandas are almost absent from Chinese art, culture, and literature until the 20th century. There are a lot of other animals that feature in them. Tigers, cranes, dragons aren't real, but still animals, but not pandas. In fact, the first depictions of pandas were European depictions of pandas. And we were looking at the People's Daily newspaper from the 1950s onwards, and we see this sort of gradually growing awareness of pandas as this rare national animal, especially when China started giving them to other countries for diplomatic reasons. And the popularity of pandas really started to increase with this diplomatic initiative, but also with the commercialization of panda images. And there's this whole legend that when Pat Nixon went with Richard Nixon to Beijing in 1972, she was at this banquet and she was looking at this tin of panda cigarettes and go, oh, I could really go for some of them right now. And Zhou Enlai was like, yeah, sure, we can give you some pandas. And she's like, oh, no, I meant cigarettes, but the pandas would be great. Yeah. So good for the zoo. But the real sort of language of pandas are national treasures actually came from an incident in 1983 when in Sichuan, the bamboo started flowering prematurely, which kills the bamboo. So all of a sudden, basically, the panda's whole source of food was gone, which led to this massive nationwide effort to save the panda. And there's real consciousness of the panda as this endangered national treasure. And Minglu can remember when she was in primary school, like singing these songs about poor baby pandas who, where's their food going to come from? And so there was like massive donations of what would have been fairly modest wages back in those days to save the panda. So there's a lot of emotional significance attached to the panda. When you think about it, it's a pretty unusual political symbol. Most animal political symbols are fierce, right? You think of the dragons that symbolized imperial China. You think of lions, eagles, bears. Pandas are clumsy. You see pandas trying to fight each other. They're clearly only a danger to themselves, but they're not even a danger to themselves because they're so round that when they fall off a tree, they don't get hurt.
I was going to make that exact point when you were talking about in the past culture, cultural animals from before, like dragons, tigers. Cranes, they're all associated with martial arts.
Yes.
What martial arts are you associating with pandas, notwithstanding Kung Fu Panda?
Well, I remember my surprise when before I ever saw Kung Fu Panda, Minglu told me, like it's a more accurate representation of Chinese culture than Mulan or anything else that comes out of Hollywood. And I saw it recently on a plane from Guangzhou. It is surprisingly accurate. Now, not everything about it is accurate, like pandas don't speak English or wear pants. But in terms of depicting the
That's why he's done a paper on it.
In terms of depicting the panda as this weird marginal animal that certainly has no role in martial arts, that's absolutely correct. One of the running jokes in Kung Fu Panda is nobody seems to know where this panda has come from because his father's a goose. So,
he was adopted.
He was adopted, yes. Yeah, the father is about to tell him,
Filing area of like expertise for Lucky.
Yes. Anyway, so we have written about all of this stuff, admittedly not about Kung Fu Panda, but all of the other stuff that I've just been talking about. This is in a journal article that we wrote with our co-author, Jingdong Yuan. I'm not married to Jingdong Yuan, but fantastic scholar, great friend. And that is linked this week.
In the homework?
In the homework, and it's open access. Okay, so this is not a commercial product. You don't have to pay anything for this. It's open access. If you don't want to read a 13,000-word academic journal article, we have written a much shorter version of it in the conversation, so you can read that.
And that'll be linked in the homework as well.
So in summary, I'm grateful for Lula. I'm grateful for Yaya. I'm grateful for all of the pandas who have given their lives over to diplomatic service. But most of all, I'm grateful for my wife.
Oh, that's nice. I'm grateful for free articles. So when we talk about the homework, just look in the blurb underneath the video. You'll find it there. And in fact, in the blurb of the audio podcast as well. I'll just say, just a little aside, that if the Chinese want that kind of love that they get from pandas for anything but pandas, can I make a recommendation?
What's that?
Because I know the entirety of China are peppers. Can I recommend they go back to the original format of If You Are the One and just get it out there? Because everyone loved it, especially me. And they just messed with it, and I can't even get it anymore. But just like, they need to get it out in English. All those with subtitles back on SBS. They need to get back to the original format, and they'll feel the love, I promise you. As the best show
I
ever.
have not seen it for years and
so
years.
So good. They're actually addicted to it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Look, what I'm grateful for, last week we talked about Trump giving Russia a 50-day deadline to end the war or face secondary sanctions. And I'm grateful for the fact that Trump is clearly a pepper, because at the time I said that this was a bit of a joke, because I made the point that Russia would interpret that as giving them 50 days to do as much damage as they possibly can, which is entirely how they interpreted it.
Yep.
And obviously 50 days later, everyone would forget that Trump even made the ultimatum, which was presumably what it was designed to do.
Yes.
Well, look, to Trump's credit, he has observed reality, listened to PEP, and he has responded.
Yesterday, you mentioned that you would change the Russia deadline to 10 to 12 days. Has that started yet, or when can we, see the official statement that is the new deadline?
I'll tell you what, I'll give it to you now. Do you want a big scoop?
Yes, please.
Everybody else, close your ears, okay? You ready?
I'm ready.
10 days from today.
Got it.
Okay?
Got it.
Good.
How do you communicate?
We have a scoop. And then, we're going to put on tariffs and stuff, and I don't know if it's going to affect Russia because he wants to obviously probably keep the war going. But we're going to put on tariffs and the various things that you put on. It may or may not affect them, but it could.
Now we're talking about a deadline of August 8, which is soon enough that no one is going to forget it. There's going to be a countdown. People are definitely going to be paying attention to this. So what that means is, according to Trump, on August 8, all the countries that Russia trades with, particularly China and India, face an extra 100% tariff with America until they stop trading with Russia. A country like China, they might just take the 100%. Even if they did stop trading with Russia, that will probably bump up oil and gas prices worldwide, which would make Russia have to sell less fossil fuels to make bank, ironically enough. But it is possible that this could place Russia under actual genuine pressure in a way we did not expect Trump to do. There's a lot of ifs and a lot of will sees there. But I'm grateful that at least Trump has dropped the lame 50-day bullshit, and maybe he might stop taking Russia's crap. Fingers crossed. Now, we are going to come back to this when we talk about India.
We are going to come back to this, yes.
But yeah, I just want to just flag that right at the top. I was pleasantly surprised by that. So I'll give him credit. A lot of updates today. This is the summer, so there aren't lots of big stories happening. I mean, trade is probably the biggest one of the week, which we will get to. But other than that, it's just lots of simmering pots, and like they just keep on going. And so there's gonna be a very update heavy ep today.
At the moment, things that are making news are like a congressman getting kicked by a horse in Tennessee,
for example.
Yes.
And, so let's start with a couple of shorter updates.
By the way, if you want to look up that story.
Yep. Very, very short update. To begin with, just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, North Carolina update. We told you folks before that there were two candidates expected to contest the North Carolina Senate race, Lara Trump and ex-governor Roy Cooper. Trump did not join the race, but Roy Cooper has. Lara Trump's RNC co-chair, Michael Whatley, has joined the race instead.
Big name.
Huge name. He's been endorsed by Trump. Cooper's the favourite, expected to be close. It's not really an exciting story, but just get you up to date because you might not have heard. So there we go.
Yes, most races in North Carolina are close.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. These days, it's probably the most closely balanced state, right, or close to it.
I think, especially in Senate competitions.
Yeah.
Like it's always within a couple of points.
And these as a result, these Senate competitions attract vast amounts of money.
Yes, very much so. I fully expect this to be the most expensive contest.
Yeah, this one will attract more than $1 billion in.
Although, having said
money,
that, I reckon there'll be a lot of money going in Maine as well. But what you often find with these swing states is that they seem close, and then on the day they blow out. Maine is a classic example. Yep. I think Collins ended up winning by almost 20 points in the end last time. Yeah. But the whole time it was like, oh, what's going to happen? Whereas North Carolina, it literally ends up being a 2 or 3 point race every single time.
Yep.
All right, so that's the first update. Second update, Skydance. That's the company that the Skydance.
Did they look at ByteDance and say that's what we want?
I don't know, but it doesn't. Talking about not sounding imposing like pandas, Skydance is the pandas of corporate conglomerates, I think.
Larry Ellison, the major shareholder?
Larry Ellison is the major shareholder, yes. The person who runs is David Ellison, his son.
Right.
Yes.
Because Larry Ellison is quite old.
That's right. Yeah. And by the way, we talk about David Ellison like he's some Trump flack because he's the son of Larry Ellison, who definitely is a Trump flack.
Definitely is.
But David Ellison gave money to Joe Biden. I don't know if he's a Democrat, but he's definitely not nearly as Trump curious as his father is.
Yes.
We should just say that.
Yep.
When we talked about Trump's lawsuit against Paramount, I made the point that according to the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission chairman, Brendan Carr, the merger deal had nothing to do with Trump's lawsuit at all. The Carr had insisted they had many other conditions that had to be satisfied for the merger to happen. Nothing to do with the lawsuit. So that made it quite interesting that within 2 weeks of the lawsuit being settled, the FCC approved the merger after nothing else had happened. Admittedly, Skydance did make further concessions at the same time. So that it might be related to the concessions. It may not be. Okay, so the merger has gone through. All right, it's been approved by the FCC. What are these concessions? Skydance promised to launch a comprehensive review of CBS's focus on the a comprehensive review of CBS focused on bias.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they will appoint an ombudsman to evaluate complaints of bias or other concerns involving CBS. They also promised to eliminate all diversity, equity, and inclusion policies and initiatives at Paramount, including its Office of Global Inclusion. Now, the vote ended up being 2-1, where the one who voted against it was the Democrat Commissioner, Ana Gomez. She said, in an unprecedented move, this once independent FCC used its vast power to pressure Paramount to broker a private legal settlement and further erode press freedom. What's your view about all this, Dave?
I completely agree with Ana Gomez.
Yep.
And I think that news media in the United States, media in general, has already been degraded so far. This is actually setting the stage for a new phase of degradation. And I'm not just talking about all of the political baggage that is going to come along with this. I am talking about the loss of any sense of news organisations or media organisations as being in some way different from other forms of business, as having some kind of responsibility other than just to make money. Companies that just want to make money should not be in the media business, because the media business is not and never has been a very profitable business for commercial media organisations. Someone like Rupert Murdoch, to his credit, he has a vision of what media should be. It's a vision that I hate. It's a vision that I completely disagree with, but it is a vision of the media as something other than just a money-making machine. There are lots of properties that Rupert Murdoch actually loses money on.
He clearly loves the media.
Yeah.
He would not own USA Today if he didn't love the media.
Yeah, no. Now, I deeply wish that Rupert Murdoch had a very different set of political values and didn't love destroying civil society and institutions as much as he does. But the one institution he hasn't destroyed is the media. What I see with Skydance is just this is a major media property that is just going to be destroyed. And you cannot run media companies just as profit-maximising businesses if they are going to have any kind of contribution to make to society. So I do not like this at all. And I mean, okay, this isn't the complete starting point of this. There have already been a lot of massive mergers that I think have degraded major media properties in the US, but this is just one of the most blatant.
Part of the problem, I think, with the CBS situation is that Paramount itself is kind of sucking.
Yep.
Like, if you look at, say, NBC, for instance, Comcast is doing just fine. So there aren't so many issues there. Whereas, like, if they can, if the larger company that owns the smaller TV channel or TV network can basically just use the TV network as just a bit of an augmentation of their main business, which is doing great.
Yep.
Not so many problems. But when you actually need the TV network to carry the load, the financial load, they can't do it anymore.
No, they can't.
Yeah, and so then you got problems, which is, I think, where Paramount's at.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think Ana Gomez is completely right. I think if Skydance want to overhaul their editorial practices, that's fine. They're a private company. They can do that. And yeah, I have no problems with ombudsmen. I think they're good. I say that to the ABC ombudsman. No, I think ombudsmen are great. And I think that accountability for not being and trying to not be biased, I think that's great as well. I've got no problems with any of that. But only if it's initiated by the actual company itself, not because there's a gun pointed to their head. Which was clearly the situation here. The government body has no business forcing them to do that. As the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, my favourite group, FIRE, has said, quote, per the First Amendment, federal law and long-standing precedent, the FCC has no business dictating the editorial choices of media outlets or conditioning merger approval on the viewpoints a network chooses to air. No federal bureaucrat should ever be allowed to play act as our nation's editor-in-chief. Couldn't have put it better myself. Even the FCC says that. If you go to their website, this is what they say. They say they only have narrow authority to take action on complaints about the accuracy or bias of news networks, stations, reporters or commentators and how they cover or sometimes opt to not cover events because the agency is prohibited by law from engaging in censorship or infringing on First Amendment rights of the press. Those protected rights include, but are not limited to, a broadcaster's selection and presentation of news or commentary. That's what it says on their website. So, and I think it's pretty clear that they've violated that in this case here. I should say, to be fair, the FCC view on this is that certainly Brendan Carr's new view, as opposed to his view when the Biden administration was around, is that under the Communications Act of 1934, the FCC has to decide whether the merger was consistent with the public interest. And he says part of deciding that is ensuring the licensees will cover the news in a way that he deems fair, accurate and balanced. Quote from Brendan Carr. Americans no longer trust the legacy national news media to report fully, accurately and fairly. It's time for a change. That's why I welcome Skydance's commitment to make significant changes at the once storied CBS broadcast network. Skydance has made written commitments to ensure that the new company's programming embodies a diversity of viewpoints from across the political and ideological spectrum. Skydance will also adopt measures that can root out the bias that has undermined trust in the national news media. These commitments, if implemented, would enable CBS to operate in the public interest and focus on fair, unbiased and fact-based coverage. Doing so would begin the process of earning back Americans' trust. Now, they're wonderful sentiments if you're not a government regulator.
Yeah.
But I don't see what the fairness of CBS News has to do with whether a merger is in the public interest.
Nothing.
Nothing at all. They seem unrelated questions to me. Now, let me quote Brendan Carr back when he supposedly had principles. When Democrats urged the FCC to reject the transfer of a Miami radio license because they objected to the new owner's ideology, Carr said, the FCC should not be using our regulatory process to censor political opinions. When Democrats tried to pressure cable companies to stop carrying Fox News, Newsmax and One American News Network because they said they were misinformation, Carr called it a chilling transgression of the free speech rights that every media outlet in this country enjoys, saying a newsroom's decision about what stories to cover and how to frame them should be beyond the reach of any government official. One more defence from Brendan Carr. He says the Ombudsman is not going to report to the FCC or the government. It's going to report to the President of Paramount. So this is still an entirely private decision. What do you say to that?
I don't believe it.
Yes. You know what? Even if they did, even if that was true, the fact it's still prompted by the government's pressure,
yes,
that's a violation of the First Amendment.
Yep.
Right. The government cannot pressure a private business to say anything in any way, shape or form. And the fact they're trying to pressure them to do even something that I agree with in principle, it's still a breach of the First Amendment.
Yeah.
You have a right to be biased. That's what the Founding Fathers died for.
But anyway, I'm guessing CBS is going to spend most of its budget now hiring Greg Gutfeld away from Fox News and giving him like news reading roles as well as late night roles. It'll just be a 4-hour block of Gutfeld.
Yeah, it's all a bit depressing. And I do agree with you as well, Dave, that I think this is the beginning of something we're going to be seeing more of. And that is also depressing.
Yes.
Epstein update. There's going to be a few of these, I suspect, over the coming weeks. Okay, there's a bit to talk about here. Why don't we start talking about Ghislaine Maxwell first?
Yes. Okay, so Ghislaine Maxwell has spoken to Todd Blanche.
Yep.
And Todd Blanche has said she answered every question truthfully.
How does he know that?
I know. How is he in the position to know whether she answered every question truthfully or not?
It sounds like he hung around a lot of sexual abuse victims 20 years ago.
Apparently, she answered more than 100 questions.
Yeah. I actually can't pick you up on that.
Yes.
She gave dirt, apparently, on 100 different people. But you phrased it the right way.
Yes.
She answered 100 questions.
Yes.
As in, he didn't say to her, Tell me about the top 100 people.
No.
Who are mixed up with Epstein.
Nope.
No, he gave her 100 names.
Yes.
And said, tell me about those people.
Yes.
Now, I wonder what those people, what side of politics those people may have been more associated with. I wonder how many of them were current presidents.
Yes.
I'm guessing 0.
Can we just remind everyone, Todd Blanche is Trump's personal lawyer.
Yes. He is the number 2 person at the DOJ and also Trump's personal lawyer.
Yes. So the chances that he was trying to get any probing information out of her about Donald Trump are 0.
Yeah. By the way, it's a real question.
Yes.
As to whether there was any point to this interview anyway. The statute of limitations expired on all these people a very long time ago. So what is the point?
As I said last week, if you were just looking at it from a legal point of view, you would go, this is completely pointless. But obviously this is not just a legal exercise.
Obviously.
Okay, so the clear goal here is to get something that can appease the MAGA base out of this interview. What will Ghislaine Maxwell get in return?
That's a good question.
Well,
Dave.
it's a good question. And just in terms of where she is at in this whole process, so she's asked the Supreme Court to overturn her conviction.
She has.
The grounds on which she's asking for this are that in Jeffrey Epstein's plea deal, part of the plea deal was that there were 4 co-conspirators who wouldn't be prosecuted. She was actually not one of the named co-conspirators who was off the prosecution list, but she claims that that should cover her.
The actual quote was
Yes.
that the Miami U.S. Attorney's Office would quote, not institute any criminal charges against any potential co-conspirators of Epstein. And they listed the 4 co-conspirators, which didn't include her.
Yeah.
But they're saying now,
Yeah.
hey, the words you used were any.
Yes.
I was a subset of any.
Yes.
So it should apply to me.
But that wasn't even the initial issue. The problem was that deal was made in Florida and Southern District of New York said that deal does not apply to us. That was where Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted. So those are the 2 points. So she's arguing that no, that deal should apply to Southern District of New York and co-conspirators means her.
That does answer the question we asked last week, though, which was when her lawyer was talking about how the government broke their word.
Yeah.
What were they talking about? They were talking about this.
Yes.
They were talking about that plea deal.
Yeah. So anyway, we will see what the Supreme Court says about this. It's not clear what she's asked for from Todd Blanche. Trump has said that it's within his power to pardon her.
We've got the quotes.
Completely rule out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell when you landed. Is that something you would ever consider and why?
Pardon for who?
For Ghislaine Maxwell.
Well, I'm allowed to give her a pardon, but nobody's approached me with it. Nobody's asked me about it. It's in the news about that aspect of it, but right now it would be inappropriate to talk about it. So,
yeah, that is not a no.
That's pretty open-minded.
Yes. By the way, he was having questions about Epstein shouted at him his entire visit.
While he was playing golf.
In Scotland, yeah. And Elle sent me the clip of he's blasting the song Memories from the car. Now, one of the things that came out of one of the many memoirs of Trump was that when he would get really agitated, there was a pianist supposedly following him around who would play Memories, which is an Andrew Lloyd Webber song. It's from Cats. Yeah. And he loves his Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals, and that would calm him down. I mean, if you'd listen to the lyrics of Memories.
Yeah, it's like a washed-up loser.
Yeah. But anyway, you know, the music affects people in very powerful and unique ways. Anyway, so the other thing that we mentioned last week was that Congress now is also going to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell. Her response to that is, or her lawyer's response to that is, she is not going to appear before Congress. She is going to take the fifth unless she gets a guarantee of immunity or her sentence getting commuted.
Knock me over with a feather.
Yes.
So while we don't know
Yeah.
for a fact that behind the scenes she's been asking
Yes.
for a pardon with Blanche,
Yes.
we don't know that for a fact. We know given that she just flat out demanded it from the House.
Yes.
That's a pretty good indication.
Pretty good indication of what Ghislaine is thinking.
Should they look? To be fair, they did have some other conditions as well. No interviews from the prison as well.
Yes, yeah.
And they would require the questions in advance. But yes. Quote, if Miss Maxwell were to receive clemency, she would be willing and eager to testify openly and honestly in public before Congress in Washington, D.C. She welcomes the opportunity to share the truth and to dispel the many misconceptions and misstatements that have plagued this case from the beginning. I bet she would.
Yes. Now, look, to me, all this looks horrific. This looks like somebody who is a really, really serious criminal, a convicted sex offender who took part in acts that everyone in America seems to agree were really, really bad and was found guilty after a jury trial and a very thorough investigation. This looks like giving her a pardon in order that she can make some embarrassing stuff about Trump go away. I don't know how the base is going to receive this, though. Yeah, that is how it looks to me.
I think you're mischaracterizing this significantly, and I think you're completely wrong when you say the whole of America agrees with this characterization.
Well, it agrees with the characterization of Epstein as bad.
Yeah, okay, Epstein, sure.
Yes.
I feel like a fairer description of Ghislaine Maxwell comes from Greg Kelly and Newsmax.
Oh dear.
Who is look, cynical people would suggest he's trying to soften up the conservative base for a pardon, but I disagree. I think he's just characterizing it the way it should be characterized. Go for it, Greg.
I do have a feeling that she just might be a victim. She just might be. There was a rush to judgment. There was a lot of chaos there for a while. All right. Granted, she hung out with Jeffrey Epstein. And I know that's apparently not good. But she's in jail for how long now? 20 years. A 20-year sentence. Well, Alan Dershowitz is one of the greatest attorneys who ever lived. And he has this to say about the Ghislaine Maxwell situation, speaking with Newsmax veteran Eric Bolling.
Should Ghislaine Maxwell be behind bars?
She shouldn't be, but she is. She is really serving Jeffrey Epstein's sentence after he committed suicide. There was no one else to prosecute because there was no real information against anybody else. And so they went after her and they sentenced her to a sentence that would have been appropriate for Epstein, but not at all appropriate for her. And so she's appealing now, and I hope the appeal will be granted. She deserves to be out.
She deserves to be out. And maybe she never deserved to be in there in the first place. Now, how could you say such a thing? I mean, these are perverts. These are child molesters. We've heard that from whom? From the media? From prosecutors? Prosecutors prosecuted President Trump over nothing. I don't know, but I'm skeptical of everything and everybody these days, and you should be too.
Apparently it's bad to hang around with Jeffrey Epstein, says Greg Kelly.
Yes.
Newsmax. Were you convinced by that, though?
Well, there are actually victims who have explicitly said that Ghislaine Maxwell participated in the abuse.
Was she one of the victims, Ghislaine Maxwell? According to Greg Kelly, she's a victim.
The last line, though, I'm skeptical of everything and everyone these days, and you should be too. No, clearly you're not skeptical of Trump.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Just before you go on there, just to be fair, like to drop the sarcasm for a second, to be fair to Ghislaine Maxwell, even though this whole situation stinks, it is entirely reasonable of her to demand immunity before, or a pardon, before testifying to Congress, given she has an appeal before the Supreme Court.
That is true, yes.
And one thing she's seeking from her appeal is a new trial. She can't have a new trial if she gets up there and spills all the beans directly before this trial. That's just not fair. That's not justice. So until she knows whether she's getting this new trial or not, and she's not going to know till well after October.
Yeah.
That's the earliest she'll know whether the Supreme Court is even going to hear from her.
Yes. Yeah.
Then it's completely unfair of Congress to expect her to do anything but take the fifth. So
that is a good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just dropping on sarcasm. That is fair enough. But this whole thing stinks.
It really does. Yeah. And so he's not the only one trying to soften up the base, but I haven't seen anyone else do it quite that ickily.
Yes.
Yeah, so others have been saying things like, well, Ghislaine Maxwell is clearly the key to this, and suggesting she did have criminal responsibility, but that she'll be able to implicate much worse criminals. And I can't remember who it was, but it was some previous detractor said, oh, we'll be able to find out a lot more from Ghislaine than we would be able to from some James Comey written files. And I think that's the line that is increasingly going to be run. Like, Trump's worked out. The key is talking to Ghislaine Maxwell. And, like, it'll be worth it to get her off the hook so that she can really implicate people that we don't like.
Good luck.
But yeah, I don't know how well that's actually going to go down with the base, or whether that's going to be too much even for them. Because there were other moments where there was this reporting that, oh, no, the Trump's got the base back on side, and he hadn't. He just got a bunch of influencers back on side. The base was still livid. So I'd be interested to see what kinds of questions Republican members of Congress are getting asked at their town hall meetings at the moment.
Will be interesting summer. One more thing about Ghislaine Maxwell I just want to add as well. I speculated in the last PEP that Maxwell might be the one who leaked the birthday book to Wall Street Journal.
Yep.
Apparently that's not the case.
Yes.
Bradley Edwards, the lawyer of many of Epstein's victims, was very clear about this on Lawrence O'Donnell's show, so I just thought I'd play you there.
I know that the executors of this estate are in possession of that book.
You've now told them exactly, according to your knowledge, where the birthday book is, who is in possession of that book. And all the House Representatives would have to do tomorrow is write up a subpoena for that book. And you believe that it would be, the lawyers involved would comply with that subpoena?
I know the executors' lawyers. I've worked with them for years. They're good people. They're good lawyers. They would comply with the subpoena immediately. It's something that we could solve this problem so quickly if people actually want to solve problems.
One of the many victims, many casualties of all of this is now the concept of birthday books.
Was that a concept before?
Yeah, it was a concept before.
I've never even heard of them.
Oh, yeah, usually for milestone birthdays, like 50th or 60th, something a bit more significant than a card.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just ruined birthday books now.
Oh, you just tell me when you got a milestone come up. I'll make a book for you, Dave. We'll get the peppers together. We'll give something special. We'll get Trump involved. Okay, so we're just talking about what the base will accept. Trump is certainly trying his luck in that respect by trying to not just divert people's attention from Epstein, but we talked about last week how he specifically instructed people on what they should do.
And say to others.
And now he's just demonstrating it over and over again. He's not being very subtle about it either.
No.
This was him in UK.
Who are you hoping Todd Blanche gets out of his meetings with Ghislaine Maxwell?
Well, I don't know about the meeting. I know it's taking place, and he's a fantastic man. He's a great attorney, and people should really focus on how well the country's doing, or they should focus on the fact that Barack Hussein Obama led a coup, or they should focus on the fact that Larry Summers from Harvard, that Bill Clinton, who you know very well, and lots of other friends, really close friends of Jeffrey Summers, should be spoken about. Because, Jeffrey Epstein should be spoken about. And they should speak about them, because they don't talk about them. They talk about me. I have nothing to do with the guy.
I love how he has an itemized list of other things people should talk about instead. That was before he left, by the way.
He is actually a specialist in instructing his fans about what to say in online combat or in Thanksgiving dinner situations.
Yes.
Like his book that he wrote back in 2015, which was then known as Crippled America, it is now known as Great Again, has lines in it like, so next time someone says to you that Trump was a failure in business, tell them blah, 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 blah.
He didn't do it just once. He did it a bunch of times. Here's another example when he was asked about the interview with Ghislaine Maxwell as well.
Well, I don't want to talk about that. What I do want to say is that Todd is a great attorney, but you ought to be speaking about Larry Summers. You ought to be speaking about some of his friends that are hedge fund guys. They're all over the place. You ought to be speaking about Bill Clinton, who went to the island 28 times. I never went to the island.
You maintain you did not write.
I wanted to play that because that's the new drink. Bill Clinton went to the island 28 times. I've heard him say that so many times in the last week or so. It's not subtle.
It's not.
It didn't work though. He still got asked about Epstein constantly. But I did want to just back over, Dave, if you could just give me a sec of the Bill Clinton thing, because I'm not going to take the bait. After I do this, we're going to go back to Trump again.
Okay.
But I just for the sake of facts, there is no evidence Bill Clinton ever went to the island. Certainly, Clinton's spokespeople said he has never been to Little St. James Island, that's the island, or Epstein's ranch in New Mexico, or Epstein's residence in Florida. This is what we do know, though. It doesn't mean there isn't more, but this is what we know.
Yep.
Between February 2002 and November 2003, Clinton took 6 trips on Epstein's plane. I'm going to tell you every single one of them. 1. In February 2002, he flew from Miami to Westchester, which is where he lives. 2. In March 2002, he flew from New York to London and then back again. 3. In May 2002, he flew from Japan to Hong Kong, then to China, then to Singapore, where he gave a speech, and to Bangkok, then to Brunei. If you count, that's 5 flights in one trip. Then July 2002, he flew from a wedding in Morocco to the Azores and then to New York, where he lives. 5, September 2002, he flew on a 9-day trip to Africa with Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker. That's the biggest scandal. Visiting Ghana, Nigeria, Rwanda, Mozambique, South Africa to work on HIV and AIDS prevention projects, democratization and economic development. Then he went to England for a speech. That trip, responsible for 11 flights. Finally, a year later, November 2003, he flew from Brussels to Oslo to work on HIV and AIDS prevention again. He then flew to Siberia and then to Hong Kong and then to Beijing. When you add up all of that, you get 6 trips with 26 combined flights.
Right.
None of which are to Jeffrey Epstein's island. That is what we know.
Yes.
Everything Trump is saying is bullshit.
Yes.
So, what are your comments?
Well, Bill Clinton is also in the birthday book. So the New York Times had a follow-up story on the birthday book, basically verifying what the Wall Street Journal had said, but also looking at some other people that were in there, which included Lex Wexner. Which include
Dershowitz.
Yeah, Dershowitz. I think that the most hair-raising one was Nathan Myhrvold.
I don't know.
So Nathan Myhrvold was one of the early major Microsoft figures.
Oh, okay.
And, it was something about animal genitalia. And part of this story was like literally after everyone they mentioned, they said, we contacted them for comment. They had no comment. Bill Clinton gave the very standard thing of I hadn't spoken to Jeffrey Epstein for years. Nathan Myhrvold's office said something along the lines of, well, Nathan Myhrvold has this real interest in wildlife and he sends this stuff to a lot of people.
That stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff about animal genitalia.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe I'll need to check exactly what the New York Times said.
Yeah.
But yes. So certainly Trump was not alone in contributors to the birthday book.
100%.
Absolutely not.
But while Trump was diverting, I can't believe he hasn't tried the animal genitalia form of diversion. That sounds like the kind of thing that would grab people's attention. But anyway, while he was diverting, an interesting news story came up, Dave, which you might want to have something to say about.
Yep.
Trump was asked again why he stopped being friends with Epstein. And we've talked about this a number of times.
Yep.
He has a new story.
Yes.
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that work for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out. And that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth. And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times.
Drink! Oh, Trumpy. Look, but that was an interesting new explanation.
Yes.
Poaching workers from the spa. Was he talking about Virginia Giuffre there?
He might have been.
Epstein met Giuffre at Mar-a-Lago in the year 2000 when she was working in the spa.
Yep.
Then he took her and he sexually abused and trafficked her for 2 years before she escaped.
Yes.
It sounds like Trump was referring to her, but was he? I've got another clip for you, Dave.
Were some of the workers that were taken from you, were some of them young women?
With some of them.
Were some of them young women?
Well, I don't want to say, but everyone knows the people that were taken. And it was the concept of taking people that work for me is bad. But that story's been pretty well out there. And the answer is yes, they were.
Yes, they were young
Yeah.
women. What did they do?
In the spa.
Jobs in the spa?
Yeah, it's people that work in the spa. I have a great spa, one of the best spas in the world at Mar-a-Lago. And people were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want him taking people. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here.
Mr. President, did one of those stolen, persons, does that include Virginia Giuffre?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. Yeah. He stole her. And by the way, she had no complaints about us, as you know. None whatsoever.
But let's just be very clear that the Mar-a-Lago spa is one of the great spas in the world.
Of course.
I'm glad you worked that one in. Okay, so that's becoming a bit more interesting. You got some thoughts about that, Dave? If indeed he is talking about Virginia Giuffre as his...
Well, the language that he's using is pretty revealing. Stealing, taking. He does seem to be talking about victims.
Yeah.
Now, on the one hand, you can see this as Trump was, he cut ties with Epstein because Epstein was clearly doing something dodgy. On the other hand, as has been widely pointed out in a lot of media outlets, is Trump suggesting he knew what was going on, and the greatest extent of the action that he took was banning Jeffrey Epstein from Mar-a-Lago.
For poaching.
Yes, for recruiting.
Yeah, not because of what he was doing when he poached them, but just the poaching action.
Yes. Now, it's hard to infer exactly from Trump's language, as it so often is. My favourite bits were spa or not spa.
Yes.
But also in the earlier interview where he said, I don't want to waste your time. When has Trump ever not wanted to waste people's time? This is one of his major motivations for everything he does, is that nobody else's time matters. The best thing that anyone has to do with their time is to listen to him.
That's a fair observation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you're right. We shouldn't draw any conclusions here, but it does appear to be suggesting that he may have known what was going on and did basically nothing. Yeah. That's the concern people have. And also, it's really confusing about what it was exactly. Like, what's the truth about how they broke up, Epstein and Trump? Because if he's talking about Virginia Giuffre, that was 2000.
Yes.
It was 2002 that he said to New York Magazine that Epstein was a terrific guy who's a lot of fun to be with.
Yes.
And he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. 2003 was the birthday card.
Yes.
And we know that he called Epstein at least twice in November 2004. The real estate deal that a lot of people say is responsible for their breakup was 2004. In 2019, a Trump Organization attorney, Alan Garten, told the Washington Post that Trump didn't ban Epstein from Mar-a-Lago until 2007. And he said that was a reaction to the criminal charges. So there's a lot of confusion here and a lot of ambiguities and question marks.
Yes.
But if the truth is that he knew about Giuffre in 2000 and knew what was going on, then, yeah, that's not a good situation for him.
It's really not.
Oh, I'm not sure if you mentioned this. I might as well, just for completeness.
Okay.
One more story about Trump. Another book has emerged signed by Trump.
Ah.
One of his own books, The Art of the Comeback.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It's not much, but it's, To Jeff, You Are the Greatest. October 97. Yeah, what it's worth. I haven't been impressed by any of the book stuff. And the birthday book didn't impress me much, to quote Shania Twain. And this book doesn't impress me much either. But yeah, whatever. Just sharing them with you. You draw your own
Certainly
conclusions.
doesn't impress me because I was working at a major bookstore.
You were.
In 1997.
Invert commas working.
In the business section. And yeah, I remember that was when that book was big.
Uh-huh.
It all sort of blurs together for me. The Art of the Comeback, Michael Hutchins's death, and Princess Diana's death.
Are you putting The Art of the Comeback up with Princess Di's death for memorability?
Well, yeah.
Okay, sure.
Because I had to sell people copies of The Art of the Comeback.
Someone needs to get Elton John on the blower to record a new version of Candle in the Wind about you trying to sell Trump books. I would like to hear that.
I wasn't trying to sell them. Sometimes I was selling them.
Do you have anything else to say about Epstein stuff?
No.
Okay, I've only got one more thing to add on this, which is there is a real investigation going on. You might not think that from all the shit we're talking about.
Yes.
But there is a real investigation going on. It's not involving any of the characters we've mentioned. Certainly not Todd Blanche. Certainly not Trump. It's involving Senator Ron Wyden, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee. He's been at it for years. Those who say Democrats showed no interest in this order, in this story under Biden, they don't know about Ron Wyden. I mean, he's not a show pony like some of these others are.
He's
so
not.
He just sort of goes under the radar a little bit. He's been following up on 4 big banks that flagged to the Treasury Department $1.5 billion in potentially suspicious money transfers involving Epstein, much of which appears to be related to his sex trafficking network.
Wow.
$1.5 billion is a lot of trafficking. In February last year, not this year, last year, 2024, while Biden was president, Wyden and his staff finally, after spending years trying to get their hands on these reports, got to look at them secretly.
Wow.
Wyden says his staff has documented information on more than 4,725 wire transfers involving Epstein's accounts, all of which, in his view, merit further investigation. Wyden wrote to the DOJ seeking that they immediately investigate the evidence contained in the Treasury Department records on Epstein, and he suggested a bunch of avenues to pursue, given he'd already been on the path. He asked they release these suspicious activity reports publicly as well. The Treasury is refusing. Wyden has been trying for years to get a subpoena going on this, but he can't because the Senate Finance Committee requires bipartisan support for a subpoena, and the Republicans aren't playing ball. They weren't even playing ball when Biden was president, which is interesting.
That is interesting. I didn't know about this at all.
Yeah.
But this sounds like if you did want to uncover some kind of conspiracy that involved powerful people protecting a monstrous criminal, that this might be where you would find it.
This might be the path. And the thing about Ron Wyden is, just like he's not a show pony, he also is not easy to dissuade.
No.
So he's going to keep on at it.
And he has been there for so long. I mean, I know there was a time in my life when Ron Wyden was not a senator from Oregon, but I can't remember when that was.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah,
he has been around there for a long time. But yeah, this is the dog that hasn't barked so far. And I don't think it'll be barking for a while yet. But Wyden ain't going to be giving up. So we'll see what happens long time down the road if the Democrats take the Senate in particular at some point in time in the future.
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if that pops up again.
Okay.
Yeah. That's enough for Epstein.
Okay.
You talk about Columbia. Give us an update on that.
Okay. Yeah. So Columbia University has now done a deal with the Trump administration. It's been published in a 22-page document. And actually, just this morning, so you wouldn't have seen it, Brown University has also struck a deal with the Trump administration. Yep. So there are 2 now.
Yep.
Now, the key features of the Columbia deal, first of all, there's no admission or finding of wrongdoing.
Correct.
Okay, so this is a settlement. There is no legal finding or admission of wrongdoing. The core of the settlement is that Colombia is going to pay the United States government $200 million.
Over 3 years.
Over 3 years.
Yeah.
First installment is due 5 days from when this document appeared.
There you go.
Okay. And they need to give another $20 million to cover legal costs, I think.
Yeah, there's investigations into anti-Semitism and stuff they need to settle with the
Yes.
US Equal Employment Opportunity Commissions. That's $21 million
Yes.
on top of that. But just to be clear,
Yep.
they're paying $200 million over 3 years plus 21. So that's $221 million over 3 years. What they're getting back is like $400 million a year in funding.
Yes, that's right.
Not to mention what they were missing out from the NIH, their research grants as well, which I believe has been estimated to be about $1.2 billion.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty good financial deal for
Yes,
them.
yeah. There's no question that this is a good financial deal.
Yeah, but there's more, obviously.
Yeah, in terms of what it does to their name and in terms of what it does to their academic freedom, that's another matter. So the president of Columbia University, Claire Shipman, claims that this protects Columbia University's academic freedom, does not cross any red lines. And they do make a big deal about the federal government has no control over Columbia's hiring, promotion or tenure decisions. The fact that they've got to put in that document that the federal government isn't controlling their hiring, tenure and promotion just shows you how far gone they are in terms of academic freedom.
Can I just take a moment to read out the other conditions?
Yes.
Because that informs what you're saying.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, because there's
here-
quite a few.
Yes.
Columbia will not engage in unlawful racial discrimination in hiring, admissions, or university programming.
Now, what that's referring to is DEI.
Yes.
There has been no legal finding that DEI actually violates anti-discrimination law. This is what the Trump administration keeps asserting in ever more loud and unhinged terms. This is the weapon that they're wielding. If this actually goes to court, there's no guarantee that that's going to hold up.
Yep.
But Columbia has caved.
Yeah. Senior White House official said Columbia will provide access to all relevant data and information to rigorously assess compliance with its commitment to merit-based hiring and admissions. Who are they providing access to? Is it interesting? Columbia will name new faculty in both the university's Institute for Israel and Jewish Studies and the departments of Economics, Political Science, or the School of International and Public Affairs.
So, even though Columbia says the federal government is not determining our hiring, promotion, or tenure, they are saying in this document, we're going to announce new faculty.
Yep. Columbia will appoint an official liaison to Jewish and Israeli students. Columbia will review its Middle East-related programs to ensure that their curricula are comprehensive and balanced. That kind of repeats what Dave just said before as well. It smells like being interfered with. Columbia will task its senior vice provost with making recommendations to university leaders about ways to improve and support Jewish students. The deal will be overseen, this is a big one, the deal will be overseen by an independent monitor agreed to by both sides who will report to the government on its progress every 6 months. They've agreed on who the monitor is as well. He's an ex-prosecutor called Bart Schwartz, who has been used as a monitor by both parties before. He seems, as far as a monitor goes, he seems like a fair choice. He doesn't seem like a hack. This to me personally is the most problematic term.
Yep.
Columbia agrees to adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism. Now, the reason why I think that's quite problematic is because while it's hard to define these kinds of things.
Yes, it is.
But in that particular definition, there are definitely bits which I feel overlap with just normal protesting. Bits like, for instance, quote, applying double standards by requiring of Israel a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nations is defined as anti-Semitism. Now, the reason why you go, well, that seems fair to not demand Israel to not demand something from Israel that you wouldn't demand from everyone else. The conditions in Israel are different to everywhere else. So to give you an example of what I'm talking about, you wouldn't require other nations to feed their enemies.
No.
But you would require Israel to feed their enemies because Israel has their enemies landlocked and has them cut off so they can't feed themselves. If you didn't require Israel to feed Gaza, they would starve under the current security environment.
Yes.
But if someone says, force Israel to drop more aid. Under that definition of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism, that is anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't ask any other nation to feed the people they're fighting.
I would take the possibility even further than that. Say an enterprising lawyer could argue that any protest against Israel at all is applying a double standard because the things that Israel is doing, you can complain that the Sudanese government is doing as well.
Yeah.
Or the governments of any one of about a dozen countries. In fact, I see this argument being made all the time. Why aren't you talking about Sudan?
So there's a First Amendment issue there, I feel.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just wanted to jump in there just to put
So
out
this is
those
a recipe for
conditions,
if you want to be legally safe, every time you criticize Israel, you actually have to criticize a bunch of other governments at the same time. Yeah.
So given that, do you disagree with the university that they haven't been compromised?
Absolutely. Yes. This is a massive attack on Harvard's academic freedom.
Columbia's.
Columbia's. The one on Harvard is coming on Columbia's academic freedom. And the justifications around this, which are increasingly shrill, is this will get back money that will contribute to cancer research that will save lives. It's like, this is all I can go to now. This is about saving cancer research. They're not standing up for their own principles at all.
Let me ask you, if they're ombudsman or monitor, whatever they call them, if they monitor just as an independent body, like returns independent advice, and never says anything to the government other than things are going fine. Or I'm taking care of it. And the government never says another word to them, to that monitor. Do you think that monitor is okay or not?
Do you think they're going to last?
No, as in, do you think it is acceptable from an academic freedom point of view to have an independent monitor looking over your university to make sure it's not anti-Semitic and all the rest of it?
Not on these grounds, not on these terms, no.
Because what the monitor is essentially doing is playing the role of the consent decree. Which is in the past, governments have done.
Yes.
Like Obama had plenty of consent decrees.
Yes.
Usually on police forces more than universities.
Yes.
But still, like that's happened in the past. So how is this better or worse than a consent decree where it's a judge rather than an independent monitor?
I just look at the circumstances under which this agreement was made. This is another blackmail agreement. The heart of this agreement is a $200 million settlement. How does a $200 million settlement help make Jewish students at Columbia safer? It doesn't at all. This was the big symbolic extraction that was coming from the Trump administration. The problem of anti-Semitism, which is a real problem at Columbia and many other places, is being used incredibly cynically as just a broader ideological attack on universities. Under those circumstances, this is a completely compromised arrangement. This is a complete sham. As the president of Wesleyan University, Michael Roth, said in an interview, how do you really trust the anti-Semitism bona fides of a government whose Defense Department just gave a contract to Grok a few days after Grok turned into a massive Hitler fan? Grok, by the way, is Elon Musk's AI chatbot that described itself as Mecha Hitler.
It called itself Mecha Hitler.
Called itself Mecha Hitler. And that wasn't even in like the top 10 most offensive things it did that day. Yeah, that's what the Defense Department has just given a contract to. Yeah, I do not trust the anti-Semitism intent of this administration. I don't think it's really there.
Do you think Columbia should have signed the agreement?
No, I don't think they should have.
Do you think?
I think this does enormous damage to, yes, it would have done huge financial damage not to sign it, but it wasn't the existential threat that they kept talking about.
What Columbia law professor David Posen says is it could have been challenged in court, but the main rejoinder I've heard from those at Columbia who think we need to try to get a deal is that the government has so many different levers with which it can punish us that it would prove a Pyrrhic victory. And he then pointed to blocking the visas of international students, investigating the accreditation of the university, threatening a tax exempt status. declining to give it research funding in the future. There's no way you can prove which grants you missed out because of retaliation in court. And so he's saying when you add it all up, people argue that it's just not worth it. Do you disagree?
I do disagree. Yeah, like not worth it in what sense? I mean, yes, it would have involved a massive, massive financial hit. There definitely would have been massive job losses. But Colombia is an institution that has been around for 100 years. Sorry, for hundreds of years. What is its name going to mean now?
So let me ask you this. Is the Trump administration breaking the law, or have they just discovered a loophole?
What they've discovered is, and I mean, they had already discovered this a long time ago, is the power of endless litigation. And this is basically Trump's whole career and whole life in microcosm. It's you win by taking the other side to court and having deeper legal resources than they do. Right? Nobody's got deeper pockets than the federal government. When Trump would get out of paying contractors by just taking them to court or threatening to take them to court, he knew he would always win because he had far more resources than they did. This is just what he's doing now. Right? This is just the purest form of lawfare. They've discovered that this can be applied not just to universities, but to media organizations, to businesses. He hasn't worked out how to do it to other countries yet, but in his first term, he was actually suggesting this is an approach to dealing with other countries as well. So it's not so much a matter of breaking the law as just using the massive kind of resource consumption that is involved in fighting legal cases. If this actually went all the way to the Supreme Court, I'm convinced the Trump administration would lose. But that would cost way more than what Colombia is going to pay now.
It's ironic that Trump's deepest, greatest grievance was the one time that he perceives lawfare was used against him.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the other deal that was done by Brown this morning was smaller and a lot pettier.
Yep.
It didn't involve any payment. It involved it involved the same thing about Brown not being able to use DEI or having race involved in any of its admission policies, but also just a couple of really spiteful things like trans people are not allowed to use bathrooms that don't comport with their with birth sex, and trans people aren't allowed to compete in women's sports. Yep. And remember, this is supposedly a settlement to do with anti-Semitism.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah, once again, they're not serious about anti-Semitism.
By the way, I don't know how to... I wasn't going to bring this up, but you just brought up trans people, and it's just something I read last night.
Yes.
I don't know what to conclude from this, but it's just worth noting.
Yeah.
Take a guess how many trans people have left the military.
I don't know.
This year.
I don't know.
Just take a guess.
No, I'm not going to guess.
Oh, you're no fun. 4. I have no idea what is going on there.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of a self-deport type scenario, and a lot of them are pending. But even by their own numbers,
yes,
not by activist numbers, by the army's own numbers. I think from memory, it was about 1,400 trans people in the military.
Yeah.
By their own numbers. Sorry, people suffering gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily trans people, but still.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's going to end at 4. There might be a bunch who are just about to.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether it's good or bad, whether it suggests that the army don't actually care and they're just, and Pete Hegseth's attention is elsewhere now.
Yeah.
But apparently so far they've only lost 4 people. So anyway, that's bizarre, that Brown settlement.
Yeah. Now,
how's Harvard fit in all
Okay, so Harvard is the one university that has gone to court, but there's still a lot of speculation that they are going to settle. And there was an interview with someone at Harvard that I was reading today was saying if Harvard could get out of this with a $200 million settlement, they definitely would.
It's only $500 million now.
Yeah, Trump has said, though, no, Harvard's going to pay a lot more to settle this. Now, Harvard's legal case is looking pretty good. So there was a key hearing about this last Monday where the judge seemed quite sympathetic to Harvard's arguments that this really had nothing to do with anti-Semitism and that this was a huge infringement on academic freedom and freedom of speech at Harvard. So Harvard wants a very quick decision on this, but the earliest that it could be would be September. And so that's going to be another entire month of massive pressure that the Trump administration is going to put on Harvard. And for the Trump administration, this would obviously be a huge symbolic victory. One of the reasons why it would be so huge would be it would signal nobody else can fight. Like if Harvard can't fight, nobody else can fight.
Yeah.
Remember last week I said, yes, I agree with Paramount that their decision to end Colbert, it was a financial decision. But it's a financial decision that is also a political decision when your whole politics are, let's just do what is most fiscally prudent, right? This is what universities are doing now. They are making political decisions that are financial decisions and financial decisions that are political decisions. And their political decisions are, let's save as much money as possible. So getting back to my earlier point about media organizations are not very profitable, even the most commercially successful ones, but they're supposed to be something beyond that. They're supposed to be something that contributes to society. Universities aren't supposed to be profitable at all. I mean, even though some of them are, their whole thing is supposed to be about their broader contribution to society. And we're looking at the situation of some of America's best known institutions of higher education letting the federal government dictate their culture to them and dictate their political positions to them and dictate their hiring practices and dictate their academic practices to them. I don't like the argument that keeps being made that the government's got no right to do this to a private institution. I don't think that the government should be doing this to any institution of education. And sure, you can make the argument that, well, public institutions are different because they're publicly funded. But what we're seeing from the Harvard and Columbia and Brown cases is that private institutions are very publicly funded as well when it comes to higher education. So private universities, we're actually all in this mess together. But speaking as someone who went to a public American university, that's what I'm speaking as at the moment. Remember who I'm not speaking for at the moment. As somebody who went to the University of Michigan and so identifies in some way with public universities, private universities can't just take this position of we're private universities, how dare you do this to us? Because the reality, as we've seen, is that the United States government is so enmeshed in the political economies of universities, whether that is through grants, whether that is through Title VI and Title VIII and Title IX, whether it's through the administration of international student visas, even through things like accreditation, that, let's face it, we are all basically public institutions here. And every American university has to actually stand together on this. You can't just sit back and hope that your private status will protect you, because obviously it doesn't.
That is true. I got nothing to add. Okay, let's go to Russiagate now. Where we left Gabbard, she just declassified another bunch of documents, in particular a House Intelligence Committee report that we talked about last week from 2020 into the intelligence work of 2016-2017. We talked about how finally they were slicing the salami in this one. Yep. The report completely acknowledged that Russia meddled in the election in a way that helped Trump. What the report objected to was the confidence with which the intelligence community said that Russia was meddling because they wanted Trump to win, as opposed to generally causing mischief. Okay. Now, the dispute in particular was over what they called the key judgment in that intelligence community assessment in January 2017, that Russia had interfered in the election specifically because Putin, quote, aspired to help President-elect Trump's election chances. The HSPCI committee wrote in 2020, one scant, unclear and unverifiable fragment of a sentence from one of the substandard reports constitutes the only classified information cited to suggest Putin aspired to help Trump win. This is that quote. Putin had made this decision to leak the DNC emails after he had come to believe that the Democratic nominee had better odds of winning the US presidential election, and that Trump, whose victory Putin was counting on, most likely would not be able to pull off a convincing victory. John Brennan, the head of the CIA, interpreted that as strong evidence, that paragraph.
Yep.
Now, Brennan also left out statements from a Putin confidant who claimed that the Russian leader did not care who won the 2016 election. He also omitted Putin's assertion that Russia was poised to succeed regardless of who won the American presidency. So the HSPCI report stated that CIA officers said that some of this information had been held on the orders of Brennan, while other reporting had been judged by experienced CIA officers to have not met long-standing publication standards. So that's why they didn't put those bits in. Now, Gabbard thought Brennan did crap work, essentially, and the HSPCI committee agreed. And to be fair, it was supported by some of the intelligence community back in 2017. Several senior intelligence officials back in 2017 pushed back on Brennan's conclusion. Quote, "We have no intelligence to directly support this aspiration point," one said, and they worried that the inclusion of the claim would open the IC, the intelligence community, to a line of very politicised inquiry that's sure to come up when this paper is shared with the Hill. Brennan called those officials into his office. He heard them out, and then he said the assessment will stay the same. In hindsight, the CIA review that came out 2 weeks ago said that Brennan's judgment was given a higher confidence level than was justified. They also say the intelligence review at the time was rushed, and there had been leaks to Washington Post and New York Times about their conclusions before they were even written. Brennan later said to Special Counsel Durham that those dissenters that he dismissed were, quote, not closely tracking all of the intelligence available, and that he had personal knowledge of raw intelligence the agents had not seen. He never publicly shared what that secret knowledge was. We still don't know what that secret knowledge was.
Yes.
But we do know that some of those who did see Brennan's secret intelligence were still not convinced by it.
Right.
Is that treason, though?
That is not treason.
It might be bad work.
Yeah. Look, this is about judgment calls that clearly could have gone in different directions.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, getting it wrong, that's just what intelligence agencies do a lot of the time.
Oh, way too often.
Yeah, right. They are trying to make judgments about things often with information where they don't really know what the level of quality involved is. The kinds of informants that they have to rely on about these things, they're often not the most reliable people.
Yep.
They are dealing with this absolutely murky situation, and they have to make judgment calls. And often those judgment calls are affected by political bias. There's no point in denying that. But just looking at this controversy and this back and forth, remember when all of this is happening, Brennan couldn't have foretold the way that this was going to blow up. No. And the other thing is, they're continuing to focus on, this is like the very earliest assessments that were being made. They kept looking into this for years afterwards.
There was no way that they could have imagined that Trump was going to sack Comey.
No.
That's what turned this into hyperdrive.
Yes. Yeah.
Until that moment, it was under control. But then special counsels and all that kind of stuff happened because of the sacking of Comey.
Yes.
It's because Trump freaked out.
Yes. And the thing is, we've heard before about these intelligence failures. We've heard before about the sloppiness. We've heard before about the questionable judgment calls. This is being dragged up again now because Tulsi Gabbard needs to save her own skin.
Yes.
And because Trump needs a distraction from Epstein.
Of course.
Yeah.
By the way, I'll even go further than what you just said. I thought everything you just said was right, but I'll go even further. It's not necessarily just sloppy or whatever. I can totally buy, and this is in fact what I believe. I have long believed that just after Trump won the election, the intelligence officials were genuinely scared that America was being led by a chaos agent who was possibly an agent or possibly compromised by a different country. And they were freaking out. And when they were freaking out, I think they dropped the ball a lot.
Yes.
I think that they cut corners they shouldn't have cut. I think they were sloppy in ways they shouldn't have been sloppy.
Yep.
I think that they did not give people the benefit of the doubt that they should have. And because of that, I think their product was terrible.
Yes.
But that's not against the law.
That is not against the law.
As you say, it happens a lot.
Yes.
Now, that's the first part that Gabbard's criticised. The second part was that she was going about the Steele dossier, and that the Steele dossier's inclusion in an annex of the intelligence community report in 2017, according to the newly declassified HSPCI report,
Yep.
CIA analysts and operations officers struggled to explain how the intelligence community assessment could have included dossier information without identifying and vetting primary sources and without explaining the political circumstances surrounding why the report was produced and funded. They also say every CIA analyst and operations officer asked about the dossier made sure to emphasise they had nothing to do with the decision to include Annex A and could not vouch for it. Also, at the time, veteran intelligence officers argued it did not meet basic tradecraft standards. And when people complained to John Brennan,
Yep.
he allegedly waved off their concerns with the phrase, "Yes, but doesn't it ring true?" Those are the two big revelations that Gabbard has been talking about jail time and treason about. I say that this is complete crap for a number of reasons. The idea that Putin didn't want Trump to win completely defies common sense.
Yes.
In 2025. Putin said he wanted Trump to win in 2018.
Did you want President Trump to win the election, and did you direct any of your officials to help him do that?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because he talked about bringing the U.S.-Russia relationship back to normal.
Secondly, there is some basic common sense here. If Putin didn't want Trump to win, why was the only hacking and leaking operation of Hillary Clinton's campaign? Pretty basic question.
Yeah.
Thirdly, they were actively dealing with Paul Manafort and trying to deal with Don Jr.
Yes.
And quite possibly also Roger Stone. So who were Russia trying to work with on the Clinton campaign? Zero.
Yeah.
Fourthly, until now, everyone just accepted this.
Yes.
I remind you of the Senate Intelligence Committee report that found Putin thought Clinton was going to win, but was trying to undermine her.
And remember, that came out in 2018.
Yes.
That was after 2 years of investigation.
Yes.
Of this stuff. There's another thing that keeps getting me about Gabbard. She's acting as if those 2 years of investigations didn't take place and that the whole narrative was formed in those last months of 2017.
And the 4 years of the Durham report.
Yes.
The special counsel. Much more importantly, though, what Brennan and Clapper are accused of doing is simply not crimes. What crime are we talking? They say treason because they can't think of an actual crime.
No.
Like, it's clearly not treason, okay? As I keep on telling people, treason does not mean something that's really bad. Treason means declaring war against your own country or providing aid and comfort to people who your country are fighting a war against. It's clearly not treason. So what is the law that they are breaking with their sloppy, shitty intelligence work? Remember, Special Counsel Durham had access to all the same material as Gabbard. 100% the same material and more. And he spent 4 years looking to charge someone with a crime.
He was really looking to charge someone. And he did in the end.
Yeah, he charged 3 underlings.
Yes.
And he didn't charge anyone else because he concluded that other government officials could not be prosecuted. This is from his report. Because though their conduct was abusive, they did not violate specific criminal statutes. And this guy was good at his job, unlike Gabbard. Right? As for the supposed coup that Obama was running.
Leading.
Remember this. He welcomed Trump to the White House and helped him out, which is more than Trump did to Biden. And more importantly, this is something everyone forgets. Obama was so nervous as being seen to interfere in the 2016 election. Not after the election, even before the election.
Yes.
He didn't even retaliate against Russia for the election meddling
He
that he
didn't.
knew was happening till after the votes were counted because he was worried it would seem like he was meddling in the election. He let them get away with it.
Yes.
Because he was so concerned about being seen to not be meddling in the election. That's the coup leader we're talking about there. So that's bad. But also, there's some really dodgy work happening in both the HSPCI report and from Gabbard that we need to mention. And that we didn't have enough time to look into this last week, but now we have. In the HSPCI report that was declassified by Gabbard.
Yep.
They ping the intelligence community for not mentioning at least 3 things that I have found, possibly more, that happened after the report came out.
Yep.
They're that sloppy in the HSPCI report, criticising the intelligence agencies from 2017. They argued that Steele was sacked for dishonesty, when actually he was sacked for leaking to the press. Ironically, while they're criticising him for his inaccuracy, they screwed that up. And worst of all, both the HSPCI report and Gabbard go on and on about the Steele dossier as if it was Brendan's key piece of evidence, when they never mention that it had a disclaimer over the top of it saying the material was not used to reach the analytic conclusions. They were 100% misleading people there.
Yes.
And Gabbard is now.
Yep.
That's the HSPCI. How about Gabbard? Let me give you 2 examples. 1, she's been caught red-handed lying. In one of her press releases last week, Gabbard quoted an email in the lead up to the election. It read that Russia is probably not trying to influence the election by using cyber means. That's what she said, with lots of ... in her press release. Now, she used that to suggest they didn't think Russia was using any cyber means whatsoever to interfere with the election before the election, and they changed their mind, right? Okay. Why don't we read the whole quote without the ... Russia probably is not trying to be able to influence the election by using cyber means to manipulate computer-enabled election infrastructure. Russia probably is using cyber means primarily to influence the election by stealing campaign party data and leaking select items, and it is also using public propaganda. That is from before. That's the quote she uses from before the election. She has cherry-picked something that says the opposite of what she is purporting it's saying, and she's dotting it and cutting it off to give it the opposite meaning. What a fraud. So in actual fact, she there does more dishonest work than anything she is accusing John Brennan of doing. That's number 1. Number 2.
But it just makes me, I'm always suspicious of book blurbs where it has some praise that's surrounded by a ... on one side and a ... on the other side.
Yes, yeah.
That's why.
That is why.
Yeah.
Number 2, there is a simply extraordinary moment. And by the way, if you think I'm going on a bit here, I was seriously considering doing a Hunter Biden part 2 on this shit.
Whoa.
Because the more I looked at it, the more I go, oh my God, this is terrible. But I just thought, this is going to take forever. No one wants to listen to me go on about this for 6 hours.
And there's no theme music either.
Yeah, so count yourself lucky. You're only going to get 20 minutes of it. There was a simply extraordinary moment in Gabbard's presser when she released the HSPCI report that we just have to back over, okay?
The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
What that was Gabbard reading out dirt from Russian intelligence reports. Okay, that's what that was.
Yep.
There's a reason she was doing that. She was reading it out because she was arguing, look, They had all this dirt on Hillary and they didn't use it. Doesn't that prove that maybe they wanted her to win? That's why she was reading it, right? Firstly, though, that argument makes no sense.
None.
Because Russia only used 99% of what they had against Clinton and 0% of what they had against Trump. That 1% left unused against Clinton, that's not exculpatory, right? It's the 0%. That's the key number there. Secondly, it's so dodgy to release that gossip that she released into the public domain without explaining any context of what that was and how unreliable it was. I get the ostensible point she's trying to make there.
Yep.
She could have done that while explaining the context.
Yep.
And she chose not to do that. Most people wouldn't have followed what that was about. They would have just gotten the bit about Hillary's on heavy tranquilizers, which is the bit Republicans got loud and clear. Do you think she could have mentioned, for example, that the FBI considered that gossip in that section of the HSPCI report to be, quote, objectively false? Because they did. According to the same Russian intelligence that she quoted there, there's a quote. Comey is leaning more to the Republicans and most likely he will be dragging this investigation until the presidential elections in order to effectively undermine the chances for the Democratic Party to win the presidential election. Is that what Gabbard believes? That Comey was pro-Trump? She should say it if that's what she believes. Also, the FBI never found the underlying stolen documents on which those reports were purportedly based. The DOJ Inspector General report suggested those communications may not even exist. So that whole section might have been 100% made up by Russian intelligence. And she just read it out like they were facts. That is even dodgier standard work than the Steele dossier.
It is, absolutely.
It's so dodgy because in Steele's case, sometimes he wasn't sure what was fake, what wasn't fake. In this case, she knows 100% what's fake and she reads it out as a fact.
Yep.
Is this treason, Dave?
No.
I don't know.
It's just bad work.
Yeah. So I just wanted to just flag all of that.
By the way, I do love hearing the term tradecraft.
Yes.
Because I am a huge fan of John le Carre. Like, I've read more of his novels more times than any other author.
Oh, wow.
And,
I had no idea.
Oh, yeah. Like, absolutely love John le Carre. I will not start on this now because it would be a tangent that would take up the rest of the episode. But tradecraft and complaints about the quality of tradecraft play a very significant role in all of John le Carre's books.
Awesome.
Yes.
So just before we move on, I should say that's not to say that Gabbard's brought nothing. She has brought some things.
Yes.
She introduced a whistleblower who we didn't know about until now.
Yep.
Who was not at all impressed with John Brennan's tradecraft in 2017. And fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't think a crime's been committed, but that's new. And I welcome it to the historical record. It's strong evidence that Brendan did not do good work. Sure.
Yeah.
Fine. Also, she maybe, I'll explain why it's maybe in a second, has evidence that John Brennan perjured himself. Maybe. I'm not 100% convinced of this.
Yep.
What people are throwing around is on May 23rd, 2017, Brennan testified to the House that Steele dossier, quote, wasn't part of the corpus of intelligence information that we had. It was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done. And what Gabbard's uncovered is that Brennan took the Steele dossier extremely seriously indeed at the time, insisted on it being in the report over everyone else's objections. Now, the reason I say I'm not 100% sure that a perjury case will stick there is because that 2017 date is beyond the statute of limitations.
Right.
The statute of limitations is 5 years. But John Ratcliffe made an important point, which applies to people other than Brennan as well, which I'll play now.
John Brennan testified to John Durham in August of 2020. He also testified to the House Oversight Committee in 2022. Hillary Clinton testified before John Durham under oath in 2022. James Comey testified before the Senate committee in September 2020. All of that's within the last 5 years. And much of that testimony is frankly completely inconsistent with what our underlying intelligence that is about to be declassified in the Durham Annex what that reflects.
There's a third tranche of declassifications coming from John Ratcliffe.
Yeah.
I don't know what any of these people said in 2022 or what they said to John Durham in 2020. I have no idea. That's why I say maybe.
Yes.
Because that's going to determine whether they've actually got a perjury trap or not. Ratcliffe says that they do. Ratcliffe, I think, is a lot more reliable than Gabbard is, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I do think that's the only road they have to feasibly gain a charge against anyone.
Yes.
Perjury.
Yeah. No, what he said was they gave testimony that was inconsistent with the underlying information.
Yeah.
That is not necessarily perjury.
Exactly.
That could be perjury, but there's a whole lot of things that could be that are not.
Totally. I'm making no predictions. All I'm saying is that's the only thing I could see them potentially getting a charge out of. Maybe out of perjury.
Yes.
Certainly not treason, and certainly not out of just sloppy intelligence.
No.
Pam Bondi has created a strike force. Strike force. Sounds like saying from South Park. To investigate potential next legal steps which might stem from DNI Gabbard's disclosures. The base thinks that treason's been committed. They're going to be baying for blood. So if there's an opportunity to nail someone with perjury, I suspect they're going to try.
Yeah.
Whether they can or not, we will find out. But that to me is the only possible way that we hear from any of this shit ever again. Is in a perjury charge.
Not going to be Obama.
Oh, no. It's not going to be Obama. Forget Obama. We're talking about Brennan.
They are going to have to deal with that disappointment.
Yeah. It's going to be Brennan or
for the rest of their lives.
Maybe Comey, maybe Clapper. It's not going to be Obama. No. The AI video will never become a reality. Dave, I assume you have nothing else to say about Russiagate?
No.
But I bet you got a lot to say about tariffs.
Yes. Speaking of tradecraft.
Yes.
Okay, so as we record now, we are probably about 24 hours away from the August 1st deadline for when trade agreements were supposed to be reached. There have been, well, depends on what you call an agreement. There have been quite a few announcements made verbally about agreements. There is, at the time that we're recording, still only one signed agreement, and that's with the UK. And that is more of a framework for an agreement. That's basically an agreement to keep talking about all kinds of things that are still disputed. But over the last couple of days or week or so, we have had announcements that have been made about agreements with Japan and with the EU, most significantly, and this morning with South Korea. Okay, so should we start talking about Japan?
Let's do that.
Okay. With Japan, the key component of this, as it is with all of these agreements, is really to do with the tariff level. When Trump said a few weeks ago, maybe what I'll just do is say, here's the tariff level, that's what it is. That is kind of what has happened. Yes. There have basically been tariff levels announced, and those are really the only clear components of these deals. Because the tariff agreement is the only thing where both sides are saying the same thing about what's been announced. So with Japan, it's 15%.
Yep.
Now, it looks like it's kind of emerging that 15% is going to be the discounted tariff. And
the baseline.
Yeah. Well, the baseline for other countries could be higher.
Well, that's what I was asking.
Yeah. Okay. But this seems to be the one where Trump has engaged in negotiations with other countries.
Okay.
This seems to be the kind of discount that you get for being a major trading power that's been involved in negotiations. So that's Japan, EU, South Korea. It's all 15%.
Okay.
That's about where the agreement about what has been agreed to ends. One feature of the Japan deal, which is unique to the Japan deal, is that according to Trump, there'll be a $550 billion investment fund that is paid for by Japan but controlled by the United States.
And that America will keep 90% of the profits.
And that America will keep 90% of the profits.
Yep.
Japan says something very different about this. Firstly, they were under the impression that it was $400 billion.
Yeah.
Then apparently it just got changed to $500 billion.
I have the proof.
by Sharpie.
Yeah, let's see the sharp. There we go.
Got changed to 500 billion, and then Trump just said verbally 550 billion.
Yes. You obviously put a lot of thought into that.
And Japan says this is just going to be Japanese capital being used for loans, and there's no agreement on the profit split, but they were under the impression that it was going to be 50-50.
Well, in a slideshow presentation in Japan's cabinet office,
Yep.
it said the profit distribution would be, quote, based on the degree of contribution and risk taken by each party. So, who knows? The thing is, the negotiation, the entire negotiation from beginning to end, do you know how long it lasted?
How long?
An hour and 10 minutes. It was Trump and the Japanese trade representative for an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Nothing was written down.
Yeah.
Literally nothing was written down. So they're just...
Yeah.
They're making up afterwards.
The tariff level is the only meaningful thing in here. But there are a couple of other interesting little things, though.
Yes.
Another feature of all of these agreements is agreement to buy massive amounts of American energy.
Yes.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Because
Japan didn't have that, did they?
They did.
They did? Okay.
Not as massive as the EU. We'll come back to the EU.
Okay, sure.
But anyway, so buying American energy. Also, that Japan would buy American rice.
Okay.
Now, this is a pretty...
He's obsessed with the rice.
Yeah, he is obsessed. And it's been historically a pretty sensitive thing in Japan. Yeah, that's the Japan deal. Other than the tariff, there's not a lot else that you can say with any degree of certainty. But very interesting thing about the tariff.
Yeah.
So that means that Japanese cars effectively have a 15% tariff on them now.
Yes.
US automakers hate this.
Yes.
Because US automakers have to use parts that from Mexico and Canada that are subject to 25% tariffs.
That's right.
What this has actually done, if it pans out, as it's been not written but spoken, this actually gives Japanese car manufacturers a competitive advantage in the United States.
There's even more.
Yes.
Because if the car gets finished in Canada and Mexico, there's 25%.
Yeah.
And also, just the steel they use and aluminium they use is at 50%.
Yes.
Whereas Japan, if they make the car in Japan, they can take the steel to Japan where there's no tariff at all.
Yeah.
So the components are cheaper and then they sell the entire car with a tariff of 15%.
Yes.
So they can way undercut America. Japanese car manufacturers are based in America at the moment. They should go back to Japan.
So, now, of course, as Trump is very proud of, now American car manufacturers have more access to the Japanese market. That doesn't mean that Japanese people are going to buy American cars. And this is only the first time I'm going to say this today, but it's not the last. When you actually are trying to rectify a trade deficit, this is ultimately going to require people to make decisions to buy goods. Governments can't make those decisions for them. They can definitely do things that can incentivize people and can, stack the deck. So tariffs are one way of doing that. Subsidies are another way of doing that. But it doesn't matter how many trade barriers you reduce to American cars. American cars are not very well designed for Japanese roads or for
too big.
Japanese conditions. They are just too big.
And by the way, at the moment, the Trump administration is going out of their way to disincentivize electric cars as well. And there's going to be a period very soon where you're not going to be able to export a gasoline-powered car.
Yeah.
Like they are killing their own potential export industry for the future.
Whereas there is a huge market for small Japanese cars in the US, and there has been for a very long time.
Yeah. A couple more things on this Japan deal.
Yep.
On the investment, the $550 billion investment, a few other separate understandings. The chief negotiator says that only 1% to 2% of the $550 billion amount will be actual investment. The rest will come in the form of loans and loan guarantees.
Yes, that's
you mentioned loans and loan guarantees, but I don't think you mentioned that as 99% loans and loan guarantees.
So let's just let's just make clear what this deal actually is. This is the United States borrowing $500 billion from Japan.
That's right.
That doesn't rectify the trade deficit.
And by the way, Japan is already the greatest source of foreign direct investment in the United States by a very long way.
Yes.
So they could accommodate that, and they haven't even bothered. Like so that is, and also they said that $550 billion was an upper limit, not a target or commitment as well. So that's all that.
Yep.
And also, just as an aside,
yes,
if Trump got what he said they gave him, which was a $550 billion slush fund to invest however he wanted, that would be 100% unconstitutional.
Yes.
Like, Trump can't raise revenue for himself outside Congress.
No.
It's Congress is in charge of raising revenue.
Yeah.
That's how it works in America.
I'm sure Mike Johnson will really stand up for Congress's right to the power of the purse.
But imagine if he could. He could then run an auction for private companies, get a slice of his loot. He could buy entire companies with the government's slush fund. That'll be socialism.
Yeah.
They could just anyway. But that's not going to happen, so don't worry about it. And just the other thing I was going to note, we never just assumed it. We never said it. Let's say it. 15% tariff for Japanese imports to America.
Yes.
0% tariffs for American imports to Japan.
Yes.
So, and to be clear as well, until now, until this year, Japanese exports to America average, they were less than 2% tariffs.
Yeah.
So they've gone from less than 2% tariffs to 15% tariffs. Okay.
Yes.
Which is less than the 25% that Trump threatened, to be fair, but still.
Now, to make a point that we frequently make on PEP, but can't be made enough times, any actual trade agreement has to be ratified by legislatures. You know what's just happened in Japan? The LDP, the party that has governed Japan for most of its post-war history, no longer has a majority. It's still the government, but it no longer has a majority. That's because it sustained some big election losses to a couple of parties whose slogan is Japanese first. Do you think that they are going to go for anything that compromises Japan's national interests?
Yeah.
Probably not. But arguably, none of this does compromise Japan's national interests.
What's the thing? It depends how you see it. Another thing which we say on PEP all the time is that this is a 15% tax on $148 billion of imports a year for the American taxpayer.
Exactly. Yeah. It shouldn't necessarily be seen as a triumph that Japan chose not to punish its own consumers in the same way.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's a Japan deal.
That is Japan. Now let's go to the other major exporter of cars to the United States.
Yes.
The EU.
Yes.
Fairly similar deal in a lot of respects. So 15% tariff, which means once again, that is also going to give European car manufacturers a competitive advantage.
Exactly the same situation with the cars,
The
yes.
Germans are pretty happy with this deal.
Yes.
The EU is not undertaking retaliatory measures. They had a lot planned, but they decided against it. A lot of Europeans are unhappy about this. A lot of Europeans see this as a very one-sided deal.
Let me quote entrepreneur Arnaud Bertrand for you.
Yep.
The deal is the EU now gets charged 15% tariffs on its exports to US when they commit to charging 0 tariffs on US imports in the EU. The EU agrees to invest $600 billion in the US for no other obvious reason than pleasing daddy. The EU will purchase hundreds of billions of dollars of American military equipment. The EU commits to buying $750 billion worth of very expensive US LNG, specifically $250 billion for each of the next 3 years. In exchange for all of these concessions and extraction of their wealth, they get nothing. I'm not even exaggerating. That is the deal. The EU gets nothing. This does not even remotely resemble the type of agreements made by two equal sovereign powers. It rather looks like the type of unequal treaties that colonial powers used to impose in the 19th century, except this time Europe is on the receiving end. What are your thoughts, Dave?
Okay, well, that is a very interesting statement for a lot of reasons. One of which is it does encapsulate the anger that a lot of Europeans are feeling. They're feeling pretty humiliated. He is, though, using Trump's language of we're getting charged.
Yeah.
No, you're not. American consumers and American companies are getting charged. And once again, the EU didn't want to punish its own consumers in the same way. Okay, so in terms of the other details that he mentioned, now once again, this is not a written agreement.
No.
And some features of it are very vague. Like the reason why he said hundreds of billions of dollars worth of weapons from the US.
Vast amounts, I believe.
That's because, what Trump announced was vast amounts.
Yes.
Vast amounts of weapons from the US.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to see that written into a contract. You will buy vast amounts of weapons from the US. We'll come back to the $600 billion investment. But what I want to talk about is this eye-watering number of $750 billion worth of energy purchases from the United States.
$50 billion a year.
Yes. And also, I think the idea was Japan would pay $200 billion and South Korea will pay $100 billion.
Okay.
So altogether, we're looking at about $1 trillion worth of energy purchases.
Okay.
Now, he said very expensive American LNG. I'm actually not sure that it's going to be any more expensive from the US than it is from anywhere else because it's traded on a global market.
Prices, yeah.
I've certainly seen one analysis that says this is actually not much of a sacrifice for the European powers because they've got to buy it from somewhere anyway and they're not going to buy it from Russia. That's not the problem with this. The US doesn't have $1 trillion worth of energy to sell unless it's not going to sell anything to its own people. That's the problem.
There's a problem.
Yeah, and I mean, in a sense, it's not a problem because it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't add up. Like this is more, unless the price gets, unless it gets very, very expensive, and in terms of that money isn't buying as much as it would buy at the moment, that's just that what that $1 trillion would buy is more LNG than the United States has to sell.
I didn't even think of that. That's a good point.
Yeah. I think even just the $750 billion that the EU is supposedly planning to buy would just be too much.
I was going to say, I mean, look, you make an excellent point.
Yes.
If they can't service it. But apart from that, I actually thought of all the elements in this deal, that was the one that I thought, oh, yeah, that's good negotiating.
Well,
because that's a win-win situation.
Yeah, no,
it's not screwing someone over.
On its surface, that looks like that will work.
Yeah, because they can't use Russian energy because it helps them in the
work,
Ukraine war.
except that there is just not that much gas
totally
there.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, the $600 billion.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
What's that even supposed to be?
Well, that's interesting. Because like Japan, Europe have admitted they can't make the private sector invest $600 billion. Quote,
I said this wouldn't be the last time we mentioned this.
It's not something that the EU as a public authority can guarantee.
No.
It's something which is based on the intentions of the private companies, said one senior EU Commission official. However, another official said that the $600 billion figure was, quote, this is my favourite bit, based on detailed discussions with different business associations and companies in order to see what their investment intentions are. So what they've done is they've estimated how much investment they think there's going to be. And said, yeah, okay, that's because of the deal.
Now that's what I call based.
So, yeah, they're just working backwards. It's just a headline for Trump.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is definitely the let's just swallow our pride and just flatter in ways that would have embarrassed medieval rulers.
We should mention the vast amounts of military equipment as well. Look, they've already struck a deal through the NATO thing to buy military equipment for Ukraine.
Yes,
that's vast.
That
amounts.
is pretty vast.
Right, number one. Number two, they've got their NATO agreement that they've got to hit 3.5% of actual military spending, 5% of military adjacent spending.
Yep.
Sometime in the not too distant future.
Yep.
Right, that's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. It might as well come from America. They're the ones who make all the weapons.
Yes.
So that's not a big deal either. That's another one of those make Trump feel like he's won scenarios.
Yes.
So what that leaves us with is just leaves us with the 15%.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps on just leaving us with the 15%. I suppose what I would say is Europe's got three choices.
Yeah.
Either they take the 15%, give Trump some extra face-saving nothings.
Yep.
or they go the trade war route and punish their own people.
Yep.
To make Trump suffer.
Yep.
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Or they find another country to trade with.
Yeah.
They're the only three options.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I don't think it's an irrational option, the one they picked.
No, it's not at all. And that option doesn't preclude option 3 as well.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
say they are working on option 3 as we speak because they know that this supposed deal that they've just made could very easily change.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally. Yeah. I should also say one other factor is that, actually, I disagree with Arnaud Bertrand a little bit when he says we got nothing for this as well, because they did get something. They got a repeat of the car situation over and over again, because it's not just cars that are topped off at 15%. It's also pharmaceuticals.
Oh, yes.
And it's also semiconductors.
Yes.
Now, right now, that means nothing because
Yep.
there aren't tariffs on pharmaceuticals or semiconductors. But Trump has made very clear there's going to be
Yes.
sector tariffs on both of them.
Yep.
And Europe got as part of their deal 15% on that.
Yes.
Which means they're about to get cheaper pharmaceuticals and semiconductors in America
Yes.
than anywhere else on Earth.
That's right.
So they did get that.
They did get that.
Yeah. And the other thing which I want to flag on this deal is that there is, at this point in time, they still haven't worked out booze tariffs. There's a big question mark
yes.
on booze tariffs. And
There is.
they're important to Europe, right?
Yep.
But it's especially important because today, literally today as we record this,
Yes.
the DC Appeals Court is hearing the appeal on Trump's tariffs case, the one
Yes.
he lost at the district court level, right? And that appeal is because those tariffs are supposedly arbitrary and capricious,
Yep.
right? That case is being brought by, guess who? A wine importer who now has no idea what tariffs they're going to pay.
Yep.
They're going to court today to
Yes.
say, look, even now, we still don't know what these bloody tariffs are. That is arbitrary and capricious.
Yep.
So Trump is cutting off his nose to spite his face here. So I just throw that out there as well.
Yes. And we may as well just mention that it's still not clear that these tariffs are legal.
Yeah, well, I think the court's going to find them illegal.
Yeah.
Personally, I think this is going to end up with the Supreme Court saying they're illegal, but we'll see.
Yes.
We'll see. I think the Supreme Court's going to take their time on it
Yep.
because they're going to stir as little as possible, but I think they'll get there. We'll
Yes.
see. We'll see.
On the booze point,
Yeah.
I was reading because, as we'll get to in just a second, it could be a 20% tariff on every other country or a 25% tariff on every other country that doesn't reach it. And I was reading, like, what on earth could Switzerland do to rectify its trade deficit with the US? So US has a big trade deficit with Switzerland. Switzerland only has 8 million people. And someone from Switzerland, I can't remember who, was saying, even if we all ate a steak every day and bought a bottle of bourbon every 3 days, we still would not be able to cover the trade deficit.
Yeah.
Oh, but think of the lifestyle benefits. Anyway, South Korea was the other.
Tell me about that.
Well, there's not really that much to say because it was announced unilaterally by Trump this morning. I don't know if South Korea has actually responded to that announcement yet. They probably have by now, but I haven't seen it. But structured in a very similar way. So it was 15% with $100 billion worth of LNG purchases.
Okay,
I can't remember whether there was. And I think there was some commitment to invest $350 billion in the US.
Sure, which private citizens need to make decisions on their own.
So, okay. So the structure of these announcements is looking very familiar by this point. Okay, let's look at the ones where trade agreements have notably not been reached.
Yes.
We'll start with India.
Yep.
Now, India is one that the US has really been craving, not only because it's a very big market, but also because it is a very protectionist market. They keep announcing that a deal is just around the corner with India, but it keeps stalling. And there is a lot of political pressure on the Indian negotiators not to do a deal that is seen as caving to the United States. They are looking at what's happening at the moment with these announcements, where other countries are reducing their trade barriers to zero on the United States while the US is still charging pretty significant tariffs on their goods. They're like, that is not going to happen to us. So Trump has said that if there is no agreement reached by August 1st, then India gets a 25% tariff plus these additional tariffs he's been talking about for buying Russian oil. India is a major, major customer of Russian oil, and he's suggesting that they would be a major target of the effectively secondary sanctions, but in tariff form, which he's talking about taking the form of 100%.
Yes.
Now, as we've said before, a 100% tariff is not a tariff, that's an embargo. Yes. So that's where India is at the moment. So he is really trying to put the pressure on India. I doubt that an agreement is going to be reached in the next 24 hours, but I'm sure there'll be some kind of, we can reach an agreement in the next week. Yeah.
I do wonder whether this is related to the EU scenario as well, the $750 billion with the EU. I mean, assuming that America could service that gas, if he gets everyone cutting Russia off at the same time, it's that much more effective.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's hard to know how much of this is about tariffs and how much this is about Ukraine.
Yes.
I don't know. One is a stalking horse for the other. I'm not sure which one it is.
Yeah.
But whatever. I'm sure it makes sense in Trump's head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about Brazil.
Yes, let's.
Now, Brazil, as we've pointed out, there are things going on here that are not to do with trade at all. So Brazil has a trade deficit with the United States, something like $92 billion.
So just to be clear, that means America has a trade surplus with Brazil.
Yes. The US is actually, surprisingly perhaps given the location of Brazil, not Brazil's biggest trading partner. Brazil's biggest trading partner is China.
Yeah, and it's about to be bigger.
Yes. Even though Brazil doesn't export a huge amount to the United States relative to its size, it does export 90% of freshly squeezed orange juice. To the 90% of the US freshly squeezed orange juice comes from Brazil.
Okay.
Now, Trump has just announced 50% tariffs on Brazil, with some exemptions, including orange juice.
Oh, how about that?
Yes. Yeah, because Trump doesn't really want to just piss people off at breakfast time.
Yeah.
Obviously, these 50% tariffs are not about trade at all. They are about Jair Bolsonaro. So the US is also imposing massive sanctions on the judge who is trying Bolsonaro, accusing him of a political witch hunt. And it's using the same rationale for these 50% tariffs. It's not just that as well. Same judge has issued massive findings against American tech companies, and that judge is often accused of authoritarianism by his opponents, but he is often joined in his judgments by other Supreme Court justices. So he's not some rogue judge that Lula just loves. He is actually someone who's pretty consistent with the Brazilian legal system. So tariffs and sanctions because of the Brazilian legal system, and because of the fact that Trump considers Bolsonaro an ally. Bolsonaro's incredibly creepy adult son has been hanging around Trump circles a lot in Florida, and I think that he has had some significant influence. Just to be clear, what Bolsonaro is on trial for is trying to orchestrate a coup, trying to assassinate, planning to assassinate both Lula and this judge, Moraes. Now, Bolsonaro has denied any knowledge of an assassination attempt, but he has said he was looking at means within the Constitution to stay in power.
Okay.
Right, so he has suggested he was trying to hang on after that election result, although he would obviously dispute the characterization of it as a coup. But guess what? Bolsonaro is opposed to these tariffs because they are incredibly politically unpopular in Brazil, and they are making Lula a lot more popular than he was before.
Of course they are. And just to be clear as well, the legal basis for these tariffs is that they are addressing some emergency in America. I don't think there's an emergency that Bolsonaro is facing court.
Yes.
So these are, in my view, the most blatantly illegal of the tariffs.
These are really blatantly illegal. This is how Bolsonaro. This is how Lula is treating them, and he's saying this isn't about trade. If you want to talk trade, we'll sit down and talk about trade. This is about politics, and you are not interfering with our politics.
Good on him.
Okay, so that's Brazil. That brings us finally to Canada.
Yeah.
Now, Canada's another one where it kept looking like there would be an agreement, but it kept stalling. And there's been a lot more reporting about the details of this than there has been about any other country, because a lot of people on both sides are telling reporters about a lot of things that are going on. So Mark Carney has been saying he believes that Trump represents a really significant shift in US trade policy, that the US is no longer committed to trade integration, that what Trump is really committed to is sector-specific tariffs. And Carney says that this is one of the reasons why negotiations are dragging on for so long, that a lot of the tariffs that Trump is talking about, these are not bargaining chips, these are things that he's very committed to. But Carney doesn't want to agree to anything that is not good for Canada's economy. One of the things that the Canadian side keeps talking about is that every time they talk to Besant and Lutnick, the same grievances keep getting recycled, and not all of them are about trade. A lot of them are about mean ways that Canadian politicians talk about the United States. Or things that they threatened to do to the United States, like Doug Ford, who threatened to cut off electricity from Canadian hydropower. The governor of British Columbia, whoever that is, apparently talks in pretty inflammatory terms about the US a lot of the time. They're just not happy about that. They are, very upset about that. One of the things that is just really clearly emerging is there are just points of disagreement that are not going to be bridged. These are Niagara Falls scale disagreements. They clearly just do not see eye to eye on these things. So I've got no idea what an actual agreement is going to look like. Carney's conceded there are going to be tariffs. Carney wanted an agreement without tariffs. He didn't see it as making any sense. The other complicating factor in all of this is that there's a lot of goods that are still covered by the USMC.
Yeah, and they're exempted.
Yes.
So far.
Yes. So I can't remember if that's 40% of goods or 60% of goods.
Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's either a minority or a majority of goods. that kind of specificity you come to me for. Carney clearly doesn't want one of these bullshit announcements where Trump just says stuff that they're not even aware of what's going to be in the agreement, and nothing's written down, and it's not actually an agreement, it's a framework. Carney clearly wants something more solid than that. And the Canadians are complaining that they are not making any progress on that with the Americans at all.
Yep, and the number that's been threatened to Canada is 35%.
Yes.
So that could be interesting.
Yep.
And then after that, we've got 1st of August, obviously.
Yes.
We have no idea what the rate's going to be, whether it be 20% or whatever it'll be. We're talking all the other countries on the 1st of August, apart from China. China deadline's August 12.
Yes.
Although they'll probably get put off another 90
I'm
days.
sure it's going to get put off for another 3 years.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's face it.
Right now, according to the Yale Budget Lab, the average tariff rate is apparently 17.3%. They're projecting 20.2% after August 1, but we'll see. Depending on the number, obviously.
Yes.
And bear in mind, Liberation Day was 10%.
Yeah.
There's been a bit of inflation since then.
There has been. I just want to talk a little bit about Australia briefly, because
certainly
that's been in the news here. So the Australian government hasn't had a meeting with the US about this. Anthony Albanese was going to meet with Trump on the sidelines of the G8, but then Trump went off to bomb Iran. So that meeting never happened. I keep getting asked about, like, why can't Australia get a meeting with Trump? And certainly the opposition here seems to be suggesting that that's because of the government's poor prioritization of its foreign agenda. But other people have asked me, is that because Australia has taken a slightly more pro-Palestinian position over the last few weeks? None of that, okay? We have to accept we are just not one of the major players here, right? The countries that they wanted to negotiate with are basically the big-name countries in terms of US trade, along with countries that Trump has particular grudges against, like Brazil and Canada.
Doing the meeting with Trump, 15% tariff. We're going to buy a bunch of energy, a bunch of LNG, and there'll be some investment.
Yeah.
There you go. Meeting had.
There's been a couple of things. One is that the Australian government announced that it was dropping one of the long-standing objections to American beef, which was to do with the fact that the supply chains were so complicated that it was hard to tell whether American beef would be completely compliant with Australia's standards. But there was this announcement, no, we now think that they are, which supposedly came at the end of years and years of scientific reviews. But the timing was interesting, to say the least. Now, however, just because Australia says this now and Trump was gloating, we are going to sell so much beef to them, I don't think there's a huge appetite for American beef in Australia at the moment. I say this as someone who eats too much beef. There's still going to be suspicion around American beef. And, I mean, certainly there are a lot of people in the beef industry in Australia who are livid about it, accusing the government of selling them out. And I think that we're going to be hearing a lot about that. So it's not necessarily going to be we're suddenly going to be buying a lot of American beef any more than Japanese are suddenly going to be buying a lot of American cars. Australia is not exactly a country with beef shortages.
I'm going to add a couple of things about tariffs in general.
Yep.
Firstly, there's been a lot of bragging about revenue recently.
Yes.
Howard Lutnick, for instance.
So the tariff revenues are amazing, right? $700 billion a year. That's just net new money the government never had before. So you take that every year for 10 years, that's $7 trillion.
That's crazy talk. The estimates I've seen are more like $2.5 trillion at best over 10 years.
But I love, that's just net new money the government never had before. It's money that American people used to have.
Yeah.
That they no longer have.
Yeah.
Because they've been paying tariffs.
It's a tax. That's what it is. It's if he was right, that's a $7 trillion tax.
Yes.
It's a $2.5 trillion tax. Also, while shrinking the economy by 0.4%. So you reduce other forms of revenue as well, by the way.
Yeah.
I should just say Harvard Business School's pricing lab reports a cumulative increase in the price of imported goods since early March of 3% so far, and that's going to go up. But interesting note on Howard Lutnick. Not even he believes his own shit. And I've got the proof of it right here. Here's him talking about the EU.
The European Union is going to pay 15%, and they sell us $600 billion worth of goods.
Okay, you get that? European Union is going to pay 15%, right? We're used to that kind of language. So why weren't airplane parts included in the tariffed products?
That's an interesting question, Chaz.
Well, let's see what Howard has to say 30 seconds later.
So basically everything they send us is going to pay 15%, except for a few little things, but most things will be 15%. One of the examples that we don't charge is on aircraft parts, so that Boeing, which is our greatest export, doesn't have to pay tariffs. And
So Boeing doesn't have to pay tariffs? Boeing? I thought Europe was paying the tariffs, Howard. Keep track of your story, mate.
And Brett Baer didn't challenge him on this?
They don't even believe their own bullshit, these guys.
Was Brett Baer just too busy rapping in his own head?
He might have been. Keeps him sane. Anyway, that's very frustrating. The other thing on the raise, which you haven't mentioned, because it hasn't really been in the news in the last couple of weeks, is the pharmaceutical tariffs, which are coming.
Yes.
Trump's been talking about the drug prices a little bit. This is a few weeks back now. I've just been holding on to it.
Yeah.
Because this is something that nobody else can do. We're going to get the drug prices down, not 30 or 40%, which would be great, not 50 or 60. No, we're going to get them down 1,000%, 600%, 500%, 1,500%, numbers that are not even thought to be achievable because I've used a certain talent that I have and convinced the drug companies that you have no choice. We will have reduced drug prices by 1,000%, by 1,100, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400, 700, 600, not 30 or 40 or 50%, but numbers the likes of which you've never even dreamed of before.
Well, that's true. I haven't dreamed of those numbers before because they are mathematically illiterate.
Oh, I've dreamed of those numbers before, but, I dream of all sorts of things that can't possibly happen.
That's fair enough. Like, obviously, you can't cut more than 100%. Otherwise, you'd be paying them to take your pharmaceutical.
So, 1,100%.
1,100%.
You're paying them 10 times the value of the good to take
the good.
To take the good.
Yeah, okay. Let's leave that aside for a second. Let's remember what he said he's going to do, which is with apparently 200% tariffs, is what he was saying. I don't even understand how that works. So many of the drugs out there are taken by seniors and Medicare pays for their drugs, right?
Yep.
So if you charge 200% tariff, it's Medicare paying for it, not the seniors.
Yeah, it is, yes.
So the government would pay for the tariff. That doesn't make sense to me at all. The government would raise revenue from a tariff that the government was paying.
Look, it doesn't make sense. But in terms of the sense-making standards of this administration, it's about par.
Okay, but let's leave that aside. Let's leave all that aside.
Yeah.
He's saying that this is going to happen in the next 12 to 18 months, which is taking us to the election.
Yep.
I can't see people copping being deprived of medicines that they need because of Trump's trade policies directly before an election.
I can't see that either.
So while people have just forgotten it, that's probably a good thing.
Yes.
I don't think it's going anywhere. But I just want to flag it because we haven't talked about it yet.
Yep.
Do you have anything to say about any other tariff stuff?
No.
We got like 35 minutes left. Let me just go on immigration, okay? You jump in whenever you want.
Sure.
I've got lots to say.
Okay.
Right, okay. I am, by the way, as a little side, I'm excited to say, just for once on immigration, there's a treat for you guys. There's a treat for you. No clips involving Tom Homan.
Okay.
None. I reckon Tom Homan might be the only person in the world who has awake apnea. When he talks, he's just... It's like a dog eating custard every time he speaks. Anyway, let's give credit where it's due. There were 6,070 encounters on the southern border in June. In June last year, it was 87,000 encounters. 6,000 for the month. That's half of what the Biden administration saw on their worst days in 2022. When in December 22, they saw 12,000 a day. Literally none of those were released into the country. So if you're someone who cares about maintaining some kind of order on the border, I am one of those people, then that's good news. Okay? To that extent.
Yes.
Right. Also, there's an update on the assaults against ICE officers I talked about with Melina last week and how unlikely they were. I was talking about how these supposed assaults against ICE officers were clearly either made up or massively overstated.
Yep.
I got a great example. Well, actually, first I'll show you another example of what I'm talking about. There's so many of these examples. Just have a look at these medical center workers. They were charged with assault for this interaction that you're looking at right here with the far stronger and more aggressive ICE officer who has them by the neck. There, that's assault apparently that you're looking at right there. Assault from them to him.
Yes.
That is, they're assaulting him with their throat. It turns out there's an excellent measure of these fake assaults, and that is how many of the charges become actual prosecutions.
Ah, right.
Because the way it works, we don't often take you through this. You got to go to a grand jury who then decides whether there's going to be an indictment or not, right? You get 21 days to go to a grand jury when you want to charge someone. According to LA Times, out of the 38 felony cases filed by the US attorney in LA, Bill Essay, only 7 out of 38 have resulted in indictments.
Right.
Out of the 9 assault cases, only 2 have resulted in indictments. The grand jury's just not buying them. And just to be clear, Grand juries only require probable cause, which is a very low standard, much lower than beyond reasonable doubt.
Yes.
It is incredibly rare for a grand jury to not lead to an indictment.
Yes.
The cliche is they can indict a ham sandwich.
Yes.
They can indict anything all the time. They have a 100% track record, except for here.
Yes.
When they have like a 10% track record. It was a real indication. It's an indictment, if you will, of how sloppy their accusations are. Apparently, a lot of the footage available on social media completely contradicts the claims made by ICE, which is interesting. But I want to tell you a couple of more horror stories. We've been talking about the police state stuff. A few more have come through. Human Rights Watch put out a report last week about what they found in 3 Florida detention centers. At FDC Miami in April, dozens of detainees were put into a single holding cell early in the morning with their feet shackled and hands tied behind their backs, then left for hours without food. By 5 p.m., no one had lunch. Some had not even had breakfast. But the guards left the food on a cart in front of them so they could see it through the bars all day while they weren't eating. At 7 p.m, they finally gave them lunch, but only after another guard protested on their behalf. And this is what they did. They chained the prisoners so they couldn't reach the plates with their hands, and they put the plates on chairs in front of them so they had to bend down and eat with their mouths like dogs. That's one story. Another story in Chrome. This is an all-male facility, but they had female detainees because every place is just stacked, right? They were made to use toilets in full view of men being held there, and they were denied access to gender-appropriate care, showers, or adequate food. The jail was so full, some detainees were kept for 24 hours on a bus in the parking lot. Men and women were confined together and unshackled only when they needed to use a single toilet, which quickly became clogged. Quote, the bus became disgusting. It was the type of toilet in which normally people only urinate, but because we were on the bus for so long and we were not permitted to leave it, others defecated in the toilet, one man said. Because of this, the whole bus smelled strongly of feces. We begged the officers to let us clean it, but they just said sarcastically, housekeeping will come soon. No one ever came. When the group was finally admitted into the main facility, they spent up to 12 days crammed in a frigid intake room that they refer to as the ice box, with no bedding, no warm clothing, sleeping on the cold concrete floor. Some feared they would get hypothermia. An attorney for one immigrant detained there said that the daily ration of food was a cup of rice and a glass of water. One man said that the only way he could get guards to believe he was suffering from a painful hernia was to throw himself on the floor. Prison staff eventually wheeled him to the medical team, where the doctor on duty told him he likely just had gas and offered him a Pepto-Bismol and 2 Tylenols. The detainee refused to leave until the doctor eventually agreed to send him to a hospital, where he received a CAT scan that found he had a strangulated abdominal wall hernia. The doctor at the hospital told me if I had not come in then, my intestines would have likely ruptured, the man said. In June, a group of immigrants at Chrome, that same facility, went outside and arranged their bodies into an SOS. You might have seen it on the news. So that's the vibe we've got going there. Another guy, Shohan, who entered the US not as a rapist or a murderer. He entered the US on an investor visa in 2016 and then overstayed. He was detained by ICE agents in all 3 of the facilities in the report. He said he was kept in overcrowded, freezing cells with broken toilets the whole time. Although he's diabetic, he told researchers that staff regularly refused to give him his insulin. He eventually collapsed while standing in the dinner line at BTC, leading to him being hospitalised for 3 days. BTC, by the way, is the same facility where Marie-Ange Blaise, a 44-year-old Haitian woman, died on April 25. An ICE detainee death report attributed her death to issues related to chronic hypertension and kidney disease, and it stated that she refused to take her blood pressure medication. Is a quote from one of the inmates. We started yelling for help, but the guards ignored us. Finally, one officer approached slowly, looked at her without intervening, and then walked away. After that, it took 8 minutes for the medical provider to arrive and another 15 or 20 before the rescue team came. By then, she was dead. Another person in that centre was coughing up blood for hours before being attended to. How he was attended to were officers stormed the cell, turned off the CCTV and slapped him. So that's one report from the Human Rights Report. So just when I see these things, I'll just pass them on. And they're about to ramp this police state crap up even further, Dave, because the big, beautiful bill includes funding, you didn't hear about this much, for all non-detained migrants to wear GPS tracking devices.
Yes.
That's not just people waiting for a court date.
No.
That's students as well.
Yes.
That's anyone.
Yes.
So look out for that one. And there's a lot more deportees coming to the system. I've told you about the temporary protection visas ending for a few countries. They just ended a few more. At the end of September, they end the temporary protection status protections for 500,000 people from Haiti and 72,000 people from Honduras and 4,000 people from Nicaragua. So they're all about to be hunted by ICE as well. And you might recall this clip earlier in the year. I think we actually might play it on PEP.
But we also have a lot of bad people that have been here for a long time. People that whack people over the head with a baseball bat from behind when they're not looking and kill them. People that knife you when you're walking down the street. They're not new to our country. They're old to our country. Many of them were born in our country. I think we ought to get them the hell out of here too. You want to know the truth. So maybe that'll be the next job that we'll work on together.
That's interesting, isn't it? A June 11 memo from Assistant Attorney General Brett Shumate listed prioritising denaturalisation as a key administrative directive for the civil division of the DOJ under Trump. That means turning citizens into non-citizens. The DOJ's civil division will now prioritise and maximally pursue denaturalisation proceedings in all cases permitted by law and supported by the evidence. These include individuals who pose a potential danger to national security, including those with a nexus to terrorism, espionage, or the unlawful export from the United States of sensitive goods, technology, or information raising national security concerns. Okay. You might say, fair enough. Terrorists, spies, yeah, okay. Also, those who obtain citizenship through fraud or concealment of material information. Okay, all right. But then it goes on. The memo sets 10 categories of priorities for denaturalisation cases, including some of these serious violent crimes, terrorism, war crimes, gang-related crimes, felonies, all this kind of stuff. Okay, human trafficking. And by the way, from 1990 to 2017, those laws existed and there were about 11 denaturalisation cases per year. But there's a new one here. Any other cases referred to the civil division that the division determines to be sufficiently important to pursue. These categories are intended to guide the civil division in prioritising which cases to pursue. However, these categories do not limit the civil division from pursuing any particular case, nor are they listed in a particular order of importance. Further, the civil division retains the discretion to pursue cases outside of these categories as it determines appropriate. The assignment of denaturalisation cases may be made across sections or units based on the experience, subject matter expertise, and the overall needs of the civil division. What does that mean?
That means whoever we want.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
And these people we're talking about here, I'm talking about the immigration people, not the migrants.
Yeah.
Have long since lost the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
So that worries me a lot.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add so far?
I would just say Ketanji Brown Jackson's description of the creation of a zone of lawlessness is getting more and more accurate every day.
I agree.
Every day, the zone of lawlessness expands.
Yeah.
The people from whom they are taking away any kind of legal protection while still subjecting them to legal constraint. And this is not entirely new. There was a lot of this going on in the war on terror under the Bush administration. It's just expanding that. And it's being done in this it's creating lawlessness in a very legalistic way, which was also signature of the Bush administration. Using the law any way they could to take legal rights away from people.
I agree.
But the categories that these are being applied to now are getting very, very big. Earlier in the year, there was a lot of gleeful talk about how this could be used against Arab Americans. And, we can probably expect a lot of McCarthyistic interrogation of Arab Americans to discern whether or not they're Hamas supporters. In other words, which is probably going to mean Palestinian supporter. Because there are clearly a lot of people now who this is their major job, right? They're prioritizing this above everything else.
And there's going to be a lot more.
There are people who don't just consider it their job, they consider it their mission. This is what they enjoy doing. And, Yeah, this is just going to be full-blown persecution.
The creeping lawlessness is, that I've talked about this a lot. This is something that concerns me a lot. And look, I often will mock you when you use an ancient reference, but I'm going to use an ancient reference now so you can mock me.
Okay, what's that?
My ancient reference is a never-ending story. I know for those who are a child in the mid-'80s, anyone under the age of 35 is going, what? But it was
that precedes Labyrinth.
Yeah, it does. It does. It was a book and a movie, and a key part of Never Ending Story was this creeping nothing.
Yes,
this black
the
mist.
Great Nothing.
Yeah, this black mist that just overpowered people.
Yes,
and just replaced objects with nothing. That is what we are seeing in the American law. This creeping nothing.
Yes,
which is just taking over, and it's really scary.
Yeah.
Of course, when they do arrest these people with their nothing, they've got nowhere to put them right now. Because as of June 23, ICE had a record 59,000 people out of a possible 41,000 beds. That's 59,000 people in custody. In LA and New York, they were often being held in office buildings and processing rooms for days. I've got some overlay here of what it looks like in a Manhattan office building. Where people were just kept there and just with those silver blankets underneath them. And by the way, the latest numbers, we should keep track of these numbers. The latest numbers of people in ICE detention as of July 13 who have no criminal convictions. 71% of people. It just keeps going up.
Yes.
It's now 40,000 out of 56,000.
Yep.
But now, of course, they've got the money for under the big beautiful bill, so they're going to lift that capacity from 41,500 to 116,000. So imagine how many they can fit. If they've got 116,000 beds budgeted, they might be able to fit 200,000 or 300,000 the way they're stashing these
And
people.
I bet the facilities are just going to be the highest quality as well.
I'm sure.
Unparalleled safety and hygiene.
Well, especially given that there's no guardrails on this funding.
No.
The Senate actually literally removed... House had guardrails in their funding.
Yeah.
The Senate removed the guardrails. It's a complete slush fund now. That they can just spend however they want. So they can skimp wherever they want. They can spend wherever they want. And remember, they got more funding than the FBI, DEA, ATF, Bureau of Prisons and US Marshals combined.
And most of the world's militaries.
Yeah. But, ironically, given that, they still might not last very long, that funding. I'll tell you why. The Trump administration just officially ended catch and release. You might remember Trump has talked about this forever, catch and release. What that's referring to is the policy where when someone applies for asylum, you screen them. And if nothing leaps out that's problematic about them, you let them stay in the community and work until their court date comes up, because the court might be 10 years away.
Yep.
That's the problem, of course. If the court's 10 years away and they effectively become part of the community, they're never going to go.
Yes.
They might just go into hiding. They might not even go to court. Some people have no intention of applying for asylum. They just say they'll apply for asylum and then they disappear. Okay, that's true. That is part of the problem with the old regime.
Yep.
So what the Trump administration has finally done is acting ICE Director Todd Lyons has put out new guidance, says no more bond hearings for migrants when they're applying for asylum. If they can't get bond, they can't be released. So if they apply for asylum, they're staying in jail until their court date. If it's 10 years away, well, you got a 10-year sentence waiting for your court date. You are going to stay in jail until you are heard. Right? That's the new policy.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, I mean, if they'll only stay in jail for detention for 2 weeks till their court date, no problems. That makes perfect sense. They could be anyone.
Yes.
So don't release them. But it's a bit much to put people in jail for 10 years when they might be a legitimate asylum seeker, obviously. I'd find this policy much more reasonable if they took some of their $175 billion to speed up the court process, but they're not doing that.
No.
So where are you going to find all these detention spots to put these people? These millions of people. Last year, there were over 7.6 million people on the non-detained docket. Where did they go? 116,000 detention beds are going to fill up pretty quick when you got 7.6 million people in the non-detained docket. And that is why I say, even with all this money, they might find their plans a little too ambitious. We'll see. At the moment, they're trying to find other places to stash them, like military bases. Pete Hegseth, who insists the trans policy is not going to negatively affect military training or operations readiness or other military requirements, has no problem with turning the military facility into an internment camp because he's agreed to this. They're sending him to Hawaii, which sounds lovely, except when you realise why they're sending him to Hawaii. It's not for the beach views.
No.
It's because their lawyers can't go there.
Yes.
It means they can't sign things. It means they can't review applications. They're going to submit on their behalf. It's just a big nuisance for the legal defence process. Of course, they don't say that's why they're doing it.
No, but that's why.
That's why they're doing it. Third countries. The State Department's been threatening countries with travel bans unless they accept a third country deportation deal and take some of America's rejected migrants. Do you know how many countries they've tried to do this with?
I don't know how many they've tried to do it with.
64 is the answer.
Really?
64. I would read them to you, but that's going to take a bit too long. Many of those are affected by conflict or terrorist violence or human rights abuses. 58 of the 64 were rebuked for human rights violations in the State Department's most recent human rights report. 58 of the 64. 12 of the 13 countries have actually done deals with have been cited by the State Department for significant human rights abuses. 4 of the 13 they've done deals with are considered to be free countries. 9 of the 13 aren't considered to be free countries.
Yeah.
By the way, South Sudan, which they've already sent people to, is the lowest rating nation on the Freedom House rankings, scoring 1 out of 100 on freedom, just in case you're wondering. Remember that about 3 weeks ago, there was a cute story about Trump being an idiot and complimenting the Liberian president on his fine English?
Oh, I remember that one, yes.
You know why he was there? Because Trump was trying to convince him to take deportees. That's why there was that hall of Africans there that he was having a little dinner with. 2 weeks ago, they sent 5 men to Eswatini, which I can find on a map because I'm a map nerd, but I bet you can't. And the 5 men...
It used to be known as Swaziland.
It did.
If you need that hint. It's mostly surrounded by South Africa.
Very well done. The 5 men were from Cuba, Jamaica, Laos, Vietnam, and Yemen. The State Department's most recent human rights report on Eswatini reports of arbitrary extrajudicial killings, torture, cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment, punishment by the government, serious problems with the independent judiciary, and an HIV infection rate of 28% and a life expectancy of 60. That's nice. Once again, they're obviously looking for particularly unpleasant places to send these people as a message, I suspect. Oh, you know what the last island is? The last country is the Pacific island of Palau, which just goes to show America is still copying Australia's immigration policy like they've been doing forever. Palau's got 18,000 people. America just struck a deal with them to take migrants. I don't know what Palau are getting out of this. Finally, we should say on this topic that, in the third country topic, that they say they're only sending people to third countries when their country won't take them.
Yeah.
That's not true.
No.
They're sending Mexicans to some of these countries. Mexico always takes people back.
Yes.
That's bullshit. They're trying to send a message.
Yeah.
The third country which is out of the picture finally, which is good news, seemingly, is El Salvador.
Oh.
The Gulag is shut. Did you know about that?
No, I didn't know
They've
that.
shut the Gulag down.
So-
Well, at least they've shut it to Americans.
Right.
All 250...
I was going to say, there's no way that they would shut that down because that place is the entire basis of Bukele's rule.
Yeah, no, all the Venezuelans are out. They've sent all 252 Venezuelans and CECOT back to Venezuela. It's part of a hostage deal.
Oh, I did see that, yes.
It's in return for 10 American hostages and freeing some Venezuelan political prisoners.
Yeah.
Some of them would have been a huge relief to leave the Gulag.
Yes.
Others, maybe not relieved because they escaped Venezuela because they were being
They're probably going to
persecuted by
die
Venezuela.
when they
exactly.
get back. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, do you have any thoughts about that as a trade deal?
So,
hostage trade deal?
So the US is not sending any more to people to CECOT?
They haven't ruled it out, but apparently not.
Okay.
And for those who think, that's very clever. Number one, it's a 25-to-1 ratio for Venezuela. So what that does is incentivizes more hostage taking.
Yes.
That's the first thing. Secondly, the US governments conclude that Maduro stole the most recent election and is not the legitimate leader of the country, but they negotiated with him, so they've just implicitly legitimized him.
Yep.
Thirdly, like I said, it returns people who fled oppression back to where they fled from.
Yep.
Fourthly, you would never be legally able to send people back to the country they fled from.
No.
When someone's seeking asylum, you're not allowed by international law, which America's signed on to, and American law as well, to send them back to the country they came from, but they're just using El Salvador as a cutout to do that.
Yeah.
So they're effectively allowing something illegal to happen through illegal means. And also, it's worse than sending them back anyway, because they were sent back after being in a gulag for 5 months as well. So it's the worst of all worlds. Before the court, by the way, has even heard their case. Remember that.
Yes.
All these people got sent to El Salvador without going to court. And now they've been sent back to the country that they were trying to flee from.
Yes.
The best part for me on this is that Rubio's statement said that he bemoaned that US citizens and permanent residents had been arrested and jailed in Venezuela without proper due process.
Oh, no.
And he called for the restoration of democracy in Venezuela. Wow. LOL, Rubio. He's worried about the lack of proper due process. And by the way, one of the guys they're taking back was a guy who was jailed for triple murder in Spain. Like, he was a guy who was born in Venezuela, became a naturalized American citizen.
Yep.
Went to Spain, killed 3 people, escaped Spain when they tried to arrest him.
Yep.
Went to Venezuela because they didn't have an extradition treaty.
Yep.
Venezuela arrested him anyway, tried him and convicted him. And he was in jail for 30 years or whatever. He's now been released. He's just walking free around America.
Wow.
And they're worried about Abrego Garcia, who,
Yeah.
by the way, still isn't out of jail, even though a court has found that he's not a threat to the community. They won't release him because they're scared as soon as he gets released, the government is going to kidnap him and send him to Eswatini.
Yes.
And the government refuses to say they won't do that. So they're worried about Abrego Garcia when they've got a triple murderer walking around America, an actual criminal, convicted criminal. They're not doing anything. Meanwhile, the guy who's responsible for this, the guy who didn't turn around the plane,
Yes.
Emil Bove, who he told people to say fuck off to the courts.
Yes.
That guy was just confirmed
He was
today.
just confirmed,
to
yes.
the third
Well, yesterday,
appeals court,
but
the
today
judge.
in Chaz time.
Yeah, today in my time.
Yes.
It was confirmed to the Third Circuit Appeals Court. Despite the fact there were 2 whistleblowers testifying to him saying, you should defy one of the courts which I am now going to be appointed to. And did you hear about the third whistleblower they had?
No.
Remember the Eric Adams stuff?
Yeah.
That Emil Bove was behind that, right? About dismissing Eric Adams's corruption charge,
Yes, yep.
so they could blackmail him to
Yeah.
help Trump's immigration agenda. Okay, that guy there, he lied about what he did with Eric Adams to the Senate.
Yes.
And we know that because the third whistleblower recorded him.
Oh, dear.
They had audio.
Wow.
And the Republicans ignored that. He's now a judge
Yeah.
on the appeals court, and he's the favourite to be the next Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
So that's him. But don't think that no one's been held to account for El Salvador, because one person has.
Who's that?
Judge Boasberg, the judge who ordered the El Salvador plane to be turned around. He's currently the subject of a misconduct complaint by the Justice Department. You've heard about this one. Pam Bondi tweeted out, today at my direction, the Justice Department filed a misconduct complaint against US District Court Chief Judge James Boasberg for making improper public comments about President Trump and his administration. These comments have undermined the integrity of the judiciary, and we will not stand for that. What she's referring to there is a memo from March 11. They had a judicial conference breakfast. The judicial conference is like a national policy-making body for judges.
Yep.
I don't know how big a deal that is, but it's got 27 members. It's got John Roberts and then the chief judge of each of the 13 judicial circuits with one judge representative. It considers policy matters, right?
Yes.
Okay. At their meeting, according to the memo that was recorded at the breakfast, the secret memo, by the way, it's all private.
Yeah.
District of Columbia Chief Judge James Boasberg raised his colleagues' concerns the administration would disregard rulings of federal courts leading to a constitutional crisis. Chief Justice Roberts expressed hope that would not happen, and in turn, no constitutional crisis would materialise. And he noted that his interactions with the president have been civil and respectful, such as the president thanking him at the State of the Union address for administering the oath. Okay, so what's the problem with that? I'll read the complaint. Judge Boasberg attempted to improperly influence Chief Justice Roberts and roughly 24 other federal judges by straying from the traditional topics to express his belief that the Trump administration would disregard rulings of federal courts and trigger a constitutional crisis. Although his comments would be inappropriate, even if they had some basis, they're even worse because Judge Boasberg had no basis. The Trump administration always complies with all court orders. Yeah. Nor did Judge Boasberg identify any purported violations of court orders to justify his unprecedented predictions. Within days of those statements, Judge Boasberg began acting on his preconceived belief that the Trump administration would not follow court orders because a few days later was the El Salvador case. So they're saying he was biased because he beforehand said that they're not going to follow a court order, and then they didn't follow a court order, right? Okay. They said this violated 3 judicial canons. 1, a judge should uphold the integrity and independence of the judiciary. 2, a judge should act at all times in a manner that promotes public confidence in the integrity and impartiality of the judiciary. 3, a judge should not make public comment on the merits of a matter pending or impending in any court. And Trump was in front of many courts.
Yep.
Okay, that's complete crap. I was going to ask you your thoughts, but I'll just say that.
No, I agree. That's complete crap.
They say he made a public comment. It wasn't public. It was in a private meeting. The only reason we know about it is because some dickhead leaked the memo.
Yes.
Right, which is a private memo. Okay. We have no idea of the context of the memo, what led up to it. Maybe Roberts asked him. We have no idea. It was just a summary.
Yep.
It wasn't a transcript. It was a summary. The memo explicitly said Boasberg raised his colleagues' concerns. Not his concerns. His colleagues' concerns. It was reporting his colleagues' concerns. He might not have shared those concerns. We have no idea. As it turned out, those concerns were right.
Yes.
And how is expressing a mild concern for a possibility undermining confidence in the integrity and impartiality of the judiciary? He didn't prejudge anything.
No.
I'll tell you who's undermined the integrity and the confidence in the integrity and impartiality of the judiciary. It's the DOJ for making this complaint.
Yes.
That's what's undermined the confidence, and I think it's the point of the complaint. They're having a go at people who resist Trump. That's what's going on there.
Yes.
And it's especially laughable when you consider how Trump has undermined confidence in the judiciary himself, probably more than any other public figure in history.
Yes.
You have any thoughts about any of that?
No.
Okay, then. There are 2 important notes, I might run out of time, about all this police state shit I want to make.
Yep.
1, don't underestimate what this does to the ICE staffers themselves, the officers, because they're not all dickheads.
No.
Some of them are legitimate law enforcement people. There was an amazing Atlantic article about this, which I'll link you to in a free version of it in the homework. It's about how low morale is in ICE right now.
Yeah.
Because not all the people there are cowboys, especially in the Homeland Security Investments Division, which is the people trying to bust trafficking rings and cartel behavior.
Yeah.
They're the real investigators, right?
Yeah.
Quote, at ICE's Homeland Security Investigations Division, which has long focused on cartels and major drug trafficking operations, supervisors have waived agents off new cases so they have more time to make immigration enforcement arrests, a veteran agent told me. No drug cases, no human trafficking, no child exploitation, the agent said. It's infuriating. The long-time ICE employees thinking about quitting rather than having to continue arresting gardeners. Quote, a common theme of my conversations was dissatisfaction with the White House's focus on achieving 1 million deportations annually, a goal that many ICE employees view as logistically unrealistic and physically exhausting. Another good quote. ICE officials say it takes roughly 18 months to recruit, screen, hire, train, and deploy a new officer. The White House doesn't plan to wait that long. The administration is preparing a plan to assign military personnel to help with enforcement work. One official who wasn't authorized to talk about the plan told me. They will primarily help with processing new detainees and preparing deportation paperwork for those in custody. And the additional billions in the Republican funding bill will allow ICE to hire private contractors to prepare target lists and other administrative tasks. So what's going to happen is this is going to drive out the good officers and it will act as a magnet for thugs and bullies.
Yes.
And the holes will be plugged by temps and randos. So as bad as I seem right now,
it's going to get worse.
It's going to get worse.
Yes.
And my final thought for you is that this is all becoming rapidly unpopular.
Yes, it is.
According to YouGov, in February, ICE had a plus 15 net favourable rating. In late June, they had a minus 13 rating, 39 to 52. Quinnipiac, late June, 56% disapprove of ICE of the way ICE is doing its job, including 64% of independents. Check out on the civics here how those supporting abolishing ICE have risen from 21% on election day, that's the blue line, to 37% now. 58% of Democrats support abolishing ICE now. It was 33%. Independents have gone from 21% to 36% as well to abolish ICE completely.
Yeah.
There's even a 6-point rise in Republicans saying ICE should be abolished, although that is only 13%. According to YouGov, 33% support the opening of Alligator Alcatraz, 26% of independents. According to CNN, 58% oppose the way the administration is using detention facilities such as Alligator Alcatraz. 26% are opposed to building new detention facilities for migrants. And don't even talk about Gallup polling at the moment. Oh my God. This is people's favourability towards immigration. Have a look how it's changed. It's gone from 16% favourability to increasing immigration and 55% favourability for decreasing immigration to 26% approving increasing it and 30% increasing decreasing it. So decreasing immigration has gone from 55% to 30% this year. Huge turnaround. Look at this next one. This is independents. This is splitting up by party. Independents have gone from 51% saying we should reduce immigration to 30% we should reduce immigration. Even Republicans have gone from 88% to 48%.
Yeah, that's pretty significant.
That is significant. 40% turnaround. What about people saying immigration is a good thing for the country? Look at this graph. A record high 79% now say immigration is a good thing for the country. It was 64% before. Interesting, Hispanics have gone from 71, are actually at 71%, which is 8% less than the general community, which is interesting. Let's break that by partisan.
Mm-hmm.
Republicans have gone from 39% saying immigration is a good thing for the country to 64% saying immigration is a good thing for the country.
Yes.
Independents have gone from 66% to 80%. Huge turnaround this year. And then there's policy. Favouring a path to citizenship for those who meet requirements over a period of time. That's gone from 70% to 78%. Republicans have gone from 46% to 59%. Independents from 72% to 79%. Hispanics, 91% favour a path to citizenship for those who meet requirements. This is all Gallup. Build the Wall's gone from 53% to 45%. Republicans have gone from 91% down to 88%. Independents from 51% to 37%. Hispanics are at 35% approving Build the Wall. Deploying all immigrants has gone from 47% to 38%. Republicans have gone from 84% to 77%. Independents from 41% to 31%. Hispanics, only 23% say deport all illegal immigrants. The darker kids gain citizenships have gone from 81% to 85%. Republicans have gone from 64 to 71. Independents from 82 to 85. Hispanics are at 91%. And finally, approval of Trump's immigration policy has gone from 35% approval. It's currently 35% approval, 62% disapproval, with independents approving of Trump's immigration policy. According to Gallup, 28%.
Yeah.
The Democrats approve. Guess what? Guess what percentage Democrats approve of Trump's immigration policy?
Oh, like 13%?
2%.
2%, wow.
And my final poll for you before we wrap it up. According to CNN, people were asked to name their most important issue. 20% said immigration, the second most after the economy. At the start of the year, Republicans were 26 points more likely than Democrats to mention immigration. Now it's 10 points more likely. It's becoming a Democrats' issue.
Yep.
And we're only 6 months in, and it's going to get so much worse.
Yes.
The backfire, Dave, is on.
Yes.
I know that I just talked a lot then, but I just realised we're out of time.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get it out there. You might have to listen to that a few times. I'm sorry. But do you have any last thoughts about polling in general, this kind of stuff?
No, I don't.
No? Okay. Well, thank you very much for being patient, Dave.
Yes.
I've been seeing this stuff for months.
Okay. I will just say one last thing before I go.
Yeah, please.
That is, I made a mistake last week when I was talking about Bertolt Brecht. I mentioned, because I was talking artists who made work about the United States without ever going there. The work that Bertolt Brecht did about the US before he went there was the rise and fall of the city of mahogany, not Threepenny Opera, which I was the one that I said. That's right. So Alabama Song is in Rise and Fall of the City of Mahogany. Yes. Bertolt Brecht did end up going to the US. Like so many others, he went to California. Yeah. It's amazing how many writers, serious writers, really tried their hand at Hollywood in those days, including my favourite. Can you hit the tangent Treehouse?
Oh, yes, I can.
My favourite example of this is actually William Faulkner. He wrote for Mickey Mouse for Walt Disney. Now, if you're familiar with William Faulkner's work at all, they're very, very different from Mickey Mouse. He didn't last long. He got fired. Faulkner got fired from basically every job he ever had except being a writer, which is the one thing he can't get fired from. My favourite story about that is at one point he was working in the University of Mississippi's post office and he got fired for stealing mail because academics would get sent journals and he would just go, oh yeah, I'll take that. So he got fired from the post office for stealing the mail and produced one of the greatest quotes ever, which was, I suppose I'll be at the beck and call of rich people all my life, but at least I'll no longer be at the beck and call of every son of a bitch with 2 cents to buy a postage stamp.
That is an amazing bit of trivia and an amazing story. I mean, I studied William Faulkner at school, so I know. If you don't have no idea who that is, look him up. That is amazing.
Yes.
That's great stuff.
Yep.
Thank you for ending the PEP on that note, as opposed to me just rattling off stats as fast as I could possibly speak. I do apologise to the Peppers for that. I know that was an ordeal. But you know what? I finished the immigration stuff, and I'm so pleased that I grabbed the brass ring when I saw the opportunity.
Yeah, it's not an ordeal compared to what people are going through in immigration detention.
Okay.
All right.
Dave, thank you so much. Thank you, Peppers. Till next week, stay peppy.